And we're off and rolling on the Krug Show. Second stream of the day. Guy Haberman was in the house earlier today, and now the great Dieter Kurtenbach, back by very, very popular demand.
It was mostly my bot army.
Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week, folks. Both spots from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m., but they do tend to run out because it's a real barbecue place. So get there early, get the brisket chili. It's all amazing. But go say hi to Damon and Mary and tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. We're also brought to you, and I probably should put the little thing.
These people pay big money, Larry. You better put those ads up.
I mean, what am I doing? I'm sitting there and I'm like, we're naked. We have nothing. We have no wrap.
If we could in some way make my face look larger by removing the real estate, that's what I'm talking about.
There we go.
And
we're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, and they will match you up to your first $100. Thanks to them. And also, I was just talking to one of our other sponsors, and that is Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. Very cool spot. If you are a sports collectible fan, check them out. They are at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, along the Monterey Peninsula. Call Anthony Catania at 831-521-5264. And at the first Friday of every month, that would be that would not be tomorrow.
It's a while from now.
Yeah, basically throughout the summer months.
Out of it. Yeah.
Throughout May, June, July, August, September, the hot summer months, on the first Friday of every month, they do kind of like a sidewalk deal where all the different businesses around Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles, they all kind of come outside. They have food and drink. People are walking around. They buy and sell collectibles, and it's really cool. So check it out and give Anthony Catania a call. And he's loving his association with the Krug Show. So thank you to Anthony for being one of our sponsors. Dieter in the house. Dieter, man, seriously, you were on before the draft a couple times, and we got deep into it. I mean, deep. Yeah. We did a mock draft, and you just demonstrated to my audience just exactly how incredibly granular you can get on the NFL draft. And, people ate it up. It was like, I hope nobody was like sitting in a parked car across from your house, with binoculars. But man, people are like, "Who's Dieter? Where did Dieter come from? Bring Dieter back on Thursday nights. We want to see regular hits of Dieter." And I said, "Oh yeah, Dieter goes deep, and it's not just on the Niners. He goes deep on the Giants, the Niners, and is all in on Bay Area sports, and does a great job at KMBR." Does a great job for the San Jose Mercury News. And so people are like, get him on. So
here I am.
We kind of decided, hey, let's do a regular hit. And we're thinking maybe Thursday night. So we're going to try it for a while and see where it goes. And I appreciate you greatly for doing it. And why don't we tell people before we get rolling, Dieter's got his own YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And I know you're on KMBR. I know you're on the, people can go to the Merc website and find your stuff.
Yeah.
But tell people, if they don't know about your YouTube venture, where they can go and sign up and support you, man.
Well, I want to thank everybody. I mean, I think we had a lot of crossover traffic from our post-draft podcast over to when Jake Hutchinson and I did what was an all-time terrible video, just absolutely egregious in its production value. I was holding one mic. It was bad. We've gotten that fixed. But we had a nice audience, and it was once the 49ers game day podcast. We realized the SEO of that was complete crap. So it's just Dieter and Hutch now. Okay. And if you want to follow that, it's Dieter and Hutch on YouTube. If you can spell my name right, you're going to find it. Trust me, Dieter. And that's where me and my man Jake Hutchinson go deep on mostly 49ers, but also we're bouncing around a little bit. We got weird thoughts on a lot of stuff, and we welcome any and all sickos over to the channel.
There you go. So go check out Dieter and Jake. Jake's the man as well. Love Jake. Does an incredible job. All right. It's amazing the growth of the NFL. It's like we almost could do a podcast on what is kind of thought of as just kind of not a big deal in the NFL that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the NFL is going to turn into a huge deal, because The draft is clearly one. The combine was another.
Oh, yeah.
And this schedule release is definitely become a thing where it's like it's NFL Network all week long, ESPN all week long, Sports Center specials, 2-hour specials. They're dusting off Mina Kimes and her regular spot and putting her on there and putting all their people together. Everybody's trying to put their best foot forward, discussing Tampa against Jacksonville in November.
Yeah, right.
Go ahead. What do you think? But it works and people eat it up. I'm sure they wouldn't do it unless there was a real appetite for it. What did you think? I mean, I'll just throw it to you blankly before we get into some of the specifics. The schedule release. What says you?
Seeing as I had the schedule sometime around noon, it wasn't that big of a deal for me. But what I found most
you got it ahead of time.
Oh yeah, what I found interesting was all the leaks, and the Niners are notorious for not leaking things, and maybe they did send some stuff out to the main folks on the beat a little bit early, but by the time that even came around, I had 90% of it locked down by just, which games are which. You talk to some folks with some other teams, you figure out when Seattle and the Rams and the Cardinals are going to be playing. And there was a couple of games that were nationally announced in the week prior. So at a certain point, it's just putting pieces of the puzzle together. I think the only one that I had messed up from, say, maybe 11 o'clock in the morning was Chicago being week 14 instead of week 9 and the bye week being 9 instead of 11. So I was covered. I went to the Giants.
You were all over it.
Yeah, I went to the Giants game last night, and the schedule came out at 5 o'clock. I pull into the parking lot. Baby, that story went up. I mean, the story had been sitting in the can for hours. So I find it interesting. I was jonesing for it. Clearly, I couldn't wait. And it makes a lot of sense as to why this is a thing, because now we can really start to get in to predicting the upcoming season. We've known the opponents forever. I mean, we've known the opponents since, I think, week 17, if not before, when we figure out what all the standings finally are. You can just put together who's going to be playing where and why. Now that you have the actual layout, where you're going to be when, now you can start making some serious predictions, and they're all going to look really stupid when it's all said and done. But it does give us a little bit of a hook to get into football season, and only a couple of months until training camp and a couple of days until OTAs. So I think we're rocking and rolling here.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we'll dive into it. All right. The only thing more futile than discussing the schedule is going through a team schedule and saying, I sense a win. I think they're going to lose that game.
Yeah.
I'd like them to bounce back and win there. But you know what? Let's do it. We're here. Let's do it. All right. I'm going to roll down the Niners schedule. We'll do it real quick because we're not going to, I don't want to, lose the entire audience, but we'll do it quick. My son and I did it last night in a live stream, and we got through it pretty quickly. All right. Cool. Week 1, Jets fly cross country, Monday nighter, Niners Jets. Who do you got?
I have the Niners mainly for Aaron Rodgers karma. But that Jets defense is going to be ferocious. I mean, this is a hell of a first test for the 49ers offense. I think the Niners win it, but man, that is not an easy entry point. Even if I'm down on the Jets offense, that's going to be a tough game.
I think that's going to be a win for the Niners as well. I'm concerned about, as far as for the Jets purposes, I don't think their remade line will be ready necessarily for the Niners D-line in week 1. Now, the Niners D-line is going to have to pivot and be better than they were last year, but
that's right.
I think there's a good chance for that. So I'll take the Niners to win over the Jets. Week 2, we thought we were going to get Niners-Vikings in London. That was one of the revelations of the schedule. We did not get that game in London. It's in Minnesota, where the Niners have struggled in the past. This is going to be Sam Darnold, most likely, over J.J. McCarthy, I would guess, starting against Brock Purdy in week 2. I'll say that the Niners win in a place that they've struggled to win, and say Niners win in Minnesota, but I don't feel confident about it.
You shouldn't, because Minnesota's a very well-coached team, and Sam Darnold has a lot of talent, and perhaps spending an entire offseason in that system, going through training camp, can get him into a place where he can show some of that talent inside of a very good offensive system. Certainly, there's an easy transfer from last year with San Francisco and the second team quarterback job that he did, and then going over to Minnesota and running what is effectively the same offense. And heaven knows he's going to have weapons. But the JJ McCarthy thing is lingering. It's going to be a storyline throughout training camp. And the Niners do have experience against the Brian Flores defense from last year. I think that little bit of experience will do them a whole lot of good. They're not going into this thing blind against Flores. They'll know what it feels like. They'll know how to handle it, at least better than they did last time around. I don't think Minnesota is going to be well put together enough to take down the 49ers here. I got 2-0, but it might be a hairy 2-0, as you alluded to.
Yeah, and Minnesota's defense is no joke, and
Nope.
we'll see what they look like this year. But I can't pick Sam Darnold to beat Brock Purdy. But here's the one thing about doing this exercise. Some people do it literally just like, think about the individual matchups. Then you got to think of it in the course of a season and how hard all these games are to win. No, there is no easy game in the NFL. Everybody's like 2 turnovers away at the wrong time from losing.
September 29th against New England might disprove that theory, but that's about the only one.
Okay, so week 3, it's Niners at Rams, and I'm going to take the Rams. And my son said the Niners are going to get the win there and go to 3-0. I'm saying the Rams. I like the Rams. I think the Rams offense is really good. I think they're getting better. I know Shanahan has dominated the Rams, but the worm's going to turn here. I'll take the Rams to get the win there. And a lot of people have already sent me messages on Twitter. The Rams are not, because I get the Rams sweeping the Niners, and they're like, "Oh, the Rams are not sweeping the Niners." And I had one other upset pick that I just had a left field, and they're like, "That's not happening. You're high." And I'm like, "Well, I could be high, but I'm not. I'm still going with the Rams." How do you see that matchup?
I don't have the Rams sweeping the 49ers, but I think that the Rams might end up being my NFC pick. I'm very high on the Rams. I know they lost Aaron Donald. I know he's an all-time player. I think that defense, with all the young guys they had last year, they still made the playoffs. Their offense never really clicked at a high level. They still made the playoffs. Last year was supposed to be a down year for them, one where they just had to eat it because of salary cap concerns. And all they did was still make the playoffs. So what happens now that they had an exceptional offseason? They had put big money on the offensive line. That defense is a year older. It is now aided by 2 new Florida State players that I really like in Verse and Fisk. I think that the Rams are going to be a force, and I don't think the 49ers are going to get blown out or anything, but going down to LA, I know that people say it's Levi's South. I get that. The Rams have played a lot of road games in that stadium over the years. It's not going to phase them. I think Matt Stafford's going to look as healthy as he's going to look all year in that game. It's a bad time to face the Rams. They're a real threat in the NFC. I'll take Los Angeles to win at home there. And that puts the Niners at 2-1, according to us.
The other thing, we can't look at everything inside of a Niner vacuum. Let's take a look at September for the Rams. Week 1 at Detroit, very tough game.
No doubt.
Week 2 at Arizona. That also will be a tough game, divisional game. Week 4, they play at Chicago. Chicago has got a tough start to their year. That's going to be maybe Chicago's most winnable game, and the Bears are good at home, as you know. So that could be tough. So the Rams play 3 of the first 4 games in the month of September on the road. This Niner game is their only home game. Unless you're looking at the Rams potentially starting, 0-3, 0-4, they're probably going to, fight and claw in that week 3 home game, and I expect a tough one. So I'm taking the Rams there, but that also is kind of part of this equation. You got to kind of study things. All right, week 4, Niners Patriots. I'm looking at a big Niner blowout in that.
It should be. It should be. I think the Patriots are going to be drafting 1 overall. That roster is bleak, and it doesn't matter if it's Jacoby Brissett or if it's Drake May or if it's your guy Joe Milton. I don't care who's back there. There's no one to throw it to. There's no one to block. The defense isn't going to do you any good. At home in September, going to be a hot day. I don't know what these Patriots are going to be ready for. I think this is going to be a double-digit line. I think the Niners make it look easy.
Yeah, I think the Patriots are going to be one of those teams that get ambushed in September. They start at Cincinnati, then they go home to Seattle and Mike McDonald's defense,
Yep.
and that's maybe Drake May against one of the best defensive coordinators going, and
Yep.
then on the road at MetLife on that terrible turf against the Jets in a division game.
Yeah.
And if
We'll
it
see
was
how many of them are
Belichick,
healthy for San Francisco, like
right,
after
exactly. I
playing at
mean, that's
MetLife.
a physical grind, and they're another team that play 3 of the first 4 on the road.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take the Niners over the Patriots. All right,
Good
week
call.
5. It's Arizona at home. I got that as a win. I mean, I don't know how it's going to happen, and I guarantee you it won't be easy because Arizona always plays the Niners tough. But somehow, some way, Niners get Arizona in week 5 at home.
It's going to be one of those wins that you just feel terrible about. Kyler Murray has had his moments, to say the least, against the 49ers. That defense is not very good, but it's extremely well coached in Gannon leading the way there. I like what they've done this offseason. I think they're a really well-run organization these days. It's just going to take a year or two for them to get back to respectability. But, man, I mean, we saw it last year, even when they were down and out. They gave some good teams some really tough games, particularly down the stretch. I think they're going to spend the entire season doing that. This is a 6, 7, 8 in a great world season for Arizona. I think that the Niners get it because it's at home. I do think the Niners sweep Arizona, not to go too far ahead to week 18 here, but
don't give it away.
No. Yeah, they're not. They are not going to be any fun to play against, and this is one of those, you mentioned it earlier. I mean, turnover margin is going to be huge. Even though you're the better team at every level, you actually have to play fundamental, complementary, all these cliche nonsense words that we think, like, this is the game where you have to do it. Put out a professional performance and you'll win. Do anything less than that, you can get got. That's the NFL, and that's certainly what you need to do when you play the Arizona Cardinals, because, I mean, Gannon is a weirdo, and I don't know if he's a rallier of men, but he has them prepared to play on a week in, week out basis.
And Arizona, I mean, I think you're totally right. I think Gannon's a good coach. I think that organization's going places. I mean, Gannon's a good coach. Monty Ossenford had a really nice draft.
Yes, he did.
They got a number of players, Max Melton and others that I really loved. And they're coming, but they ain't coming yet. And, I think they're another team that could get ambushed. I mean, week 1 at Buffalo, then they get the Rams in week 2, then they get Detroit in week 3, then they get the Commanders in week 4. I mean, if Arizona has any kind of hiccup at the beginning of the year, they could roll into this game against the 49ers, in week 5, winless. They could be winless. All right, week 6. Oh, go ahead.
Out the week 5 of it all. Like, this is also a stretch because we know, I mean, everyone by now, I would presume, has seen the 49ers schedule. Like, if you're going into September or October at 500, going into that Arizona game at 500, that's a real problem for the Niners. They have to be 3-1. They have to come out of that Arizona game with a win, because depending on how you feel about Seattle, and I think you and I are both very high on Mike McDonald and what he can do. This might be too early to have fully implemented it yet, but like, you get a tough division game against your number 1 rival. And then from then on out, it is just brutal. There is one reprieve maybe down the stretch. And so you better be working with some house money, to whatever degree you want to call that, whether that's 5-0, 4-1, what you better have your wins in order, because even if you are the most optimistic 49ers fan, there are some L's coming your way over the next 2.5 months, just based on how this schedule was backloaded.
Yeah, no, the Niners, it's essential that they bank wins early, because the backside of this schedule does look pretty bad.
And that's where you get into Super Bowl hangover and Kyle Shanahan treating September like preseason sometimes. I mean, I know they came out 5-0 last year, but it was an ugly 5-0, as ugly as it can be. And in prior years, I mean, they've been 3-5, and they've had to fight. Deebo Samuel had to carry them all the way to the playoffs and eventually the NFC Championship game. I mean, this is not a team that I think deserves the benefit of the doubt for coming out strong. So the way that this schedule operates, man, I mean, I think it plays to the 49ers' worst tendencies as an organization, Kyle Shanahan's worst tendencies as a coach. And it's going to be a hell of a test for a team that will probably want to ease into things. I guess you can. Then I look at, Jets, Minnesota, Rams, like, you don't get to ease into anything until September 29th. And by then you might be fighting for something.
Yeah, week 6 is Niners on a Thursday nighter, short week,
Mm-hmm.
on the road against Seattle. And I'm going to say the Niners get the win just because I think, Brock over Geno, and the Niners, for whatever reason, Seattle brings out something in the 49ers where they never emotionally no-show Seattle. They always there's something about Seattle that especially on the road and trying to win there. It was a house of horrors forever, but now it seems like the Niners, feel very comfortable playing in the Pacific Northwest. I think the Niners get the win against Seattle on that Thursday night.
Thursday night's actually a key for me on this because you don't allow Mike McDonald and you don't allow Kyle Shanahan to get deep into their bag when it comes to game planning. This is basically a dudes versus dudes game. This is going to be a pretty vanilla scheme for both teams. And I'll take the 49ers dudes over the Seahawks dudes any day of the week. You give an extra week or even, a long week to McDonald, he's going to come up with something interesting and bespoke and terrifying for the 49ers defense. I don't know if they have the dudes to do it. I'm fascinated to find out if they can run what McDonald ran last year in Baltimore. I imagine he's going to have to adapt, maybe not significantly, but noticeably to what Seattle has going on. But they had a really nice offseason, in my opinion, as well. Yeah. And but having that Thursday night game, it's time to recover, but it's not really time to deeply scheme anything, get into anything too complicated or interesting. It's just dudes versus dudes. Let's run our stuff. And again, I'll take the Niners in that any day of the week.
All right, week 7 is where this thing starts to get real difficult, and it's the Chiefs at Levi's, and I've got the Chiefs winning the game. I'm not predicting the Niners to beat Kansas City again until they do it. And I'll be surprised, pleasantly surprised. Why this spot worries me is that Kansas City's September could be very problematic, and they have the kickoff classic at Arrowhead against Baltimore. That could be a win, but that could easily be a loss. They get Cincinnati. They get Cincinnati at home. Joe Burrow, seems like he's had Mahomes' number at times. That could be a loss. They get Cousins in Atlanta in week 3, and then they get Herbert and the battle against the Chargers in at SoFi. Yeah. And we know the Chargers, I think, are going to be better this year with Jim Harbaugh there. So, I think there's a chance that KC, even though they're the best team in pro football, could be 2-2 coming out of September. And I think they're going to have to, they're going to be kind of challenged early. They're going to lose a couple games. They're going to flip a switch, and they're going to be really cooking by week 7. And I think they'll beat the Niners.
I think that's right. The only hesitancy I have on this is that the Niners are coming off that mini bye. And given where they're at, they could be pretty amped up. I don't get the sense that this is a Niners team that's going to be like holding grudges or thinking to themselves, oh, we beat the Chiefs in week 7. We're vindicated from the Super Bowl losses. Like, I don't think they buy into any of that stuff, but there might be a little extra juice for them that game. I'm still going to take the Chiefs because until I see the 49ers beat the Chiefs, I'm not predicting it. That it's just flat out like the Chiefs have not just had the Niners number in the Super Bowl. They've kicked their ass in the regular season too. And it's not been all that frequent, but until I see Patrick Mahomes lose to the San Francisco 49ers, I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes. Call me any bad name you want. I feel like that's a pretty sound piece of logic.
Something tells me that Chris Jones could have an impact in the game. I'm not
sure
why.
Say that?
It just seems like every time the Niners play the Chiefs, Chris Jones looks like Mean Joe Green, Reggie White, and Bruce Smith all wrapped into one.
Yeah.
Kansas City's going to win that
game. And they were a flawed team last year. This is something we've talked about a bunch. Like, that is the worst Chiefs team that I've seen in the last 5-6 years, and they still won the Super Bowl. Yeah. I think that they had, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. Luckily, Dallas didn't have a good offseason, so we can get into them in a second. But I think Kansas City did a really nice job of addressing some of those champagne problems that they had, addressing some of those concerns that let them down in last regular season. But again, they got 1-5, and until that dude looks anything like a mortal, it'd be really foolish to bet against him. And maybe the Niners get his number here. I don't know. That mini bye is pretty big. You get a little more rest than them. They got to come over here too, middle of the afternoon in October. probably going to be fairly hot, though they're coming from Kansas City, so who knows?
I mean, they got the best offensive player in the game. They got the best defensive player in the game, and in my mind, they may have the best defensive back in the game in McDuffie. And
that's
even
fair.
without Snead, I mean,
yeah,
McDuffie's awesome in the slot, and then his coverage in the Super Bowl was impeccable.
Yeah.
Jones is just a monster, and Mahomes is Mahomes. So
they know what they're about, and they're going to bring it. And if the Niners take a single step the wrong way, it's game over.
Right. I mean, if you told me Mahomes got hit by a car, maybe I'd pick Kansas City to lose that game. But until
who's
then,
the backup? Blaine Gabbert? I don't know.
Yeah. Blaine Gabbert Sunshine is going to come off the bench and make it happen. All right, week 8, Niners and Cowboys, and this is Sunday Night Football at Levi's. And this was the easiest one for me to handicap. The Niners own Dallas.
Yes.
And they own Dallas for one reason, because the Niners can run the ball against Dallas.
Yep.
And Dallas cannot run the ball against the Niners. And Dallas
can't run the ball against anybody. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Dallas, but I mean, they run the ball sometimes against some of their division dog meat teams, but they don't run the ball against the Niners at all. And they can't stop the Niner run. So then the Niners have play action available, and they just pick apart Dallas, and they always take them. You know, there's going to be a big Cowboy contingent at Levi's. There always is.
No doubt.
And they travel incredibly well. So you want to shut those people up. And it just, I don't know. I mean, I'll take I don't care if the Niners play Dallas, where or when, what time, what rest. I don't care. The Niners are going to beat Dallas. And it used to be, there was a time in the 90s where Dallas was going to beat the Niners. But now the worm has turned, and the Niners own Dallas. So I'm going to say, and I thought Dallas had one of the worst drafts and worst off seasons of any team in pro football. I think that they still have Prescott, and they still have CeeDee Lamb, they still have Micah Parsons, but they've missed on the. I thought they missed last year with Mozzie Smith in round 1. I think they missed again with Tyler Guyton in round 1. They haven't filled their holes, and to me, if there's a team that has taken a step back, a lot of people are pointing to the Niners. I think it's Dallas. I think Detroit, Green Bay, and the Niners and the Eagles are still there at the top of the conference. And I think Dallas is the team that's going to get pushed over by Washington in the division or somebody else in the conference. They'll still get some wins, but I think Dallas is going to take a little back step here.
Well, and beyond that, the Niners will be, if our predictions come to pass, as they always do, coming off a loss against Kansas City. And so now you have another primetime game, another opportunity to show, hey, we're not chumps. I know that Kansas City game isn't technically in primetime, but Fox paid a whole lot of money to make sure that was the 125 game Pacific on that week. They're going for it with CBS, and that
Tom
was
Brady.
Their crown jewel. Oh, yeah, we'll get Tom. We'll get Tom coming home. I'm sure he's going to do a great job. I'm lying. Though actually, you know what? I've watched a little bit of it. I mean, I don't understand what's going on with his voice, but if he can just be smart, I'll take it. I liked what Greg Olson was doing. I'm kind of out on Burkhardt, and I hate saying that because Kevin Burkhardt is just like the greatest guy on the planet. We work together at Fox, and
I do like Burkhardt too.
He's just a mensch, but if I'm being honest, I'm pretty out on Burkhardt as a play-by-play guy. So I don't know what that booth is going to be. That doesn't really matter. Let's talk about the Cowboys. They can't run the ball.
They have no running back.
If they don't have a running back, maybe they find one. Probably won't. I guess they're going to go with Zeke. Good luck with that. There's just attrition across the board, right? I don't know what their linebacker situation is going to be, but I don't think it's going to be good. That's the Kyle Shanahan dream scenario right there. Crappy linebackers. I mean, all day, every day. And if you're asking Dak Prescott to throw the ball 45 times a game, congratulations, you're going to lose. So that's what I imagine happens in this game, just as it happened last year. It was 31-13. Could have been bigger than that. I don't know if that's the margin again, but I have a feeling it feels a lot the same on this Sunday Night Football foray. And the Niners just keep kicking Dallas's ass. And maybe this will force Dallas to really think about what it is they're doing, because clearly they didn't have any of that consideration this past offseason.
And then they get the week 9 bye, which I think is a good bye week. I like
Can't
the
complain.
week 9 bye. Yeah, I mean,
I can complain because I was trying to go to a Missouri Tigers football game, and that sets me up to go see the Tigers play at UMass. No one wants that.
No one wants that. At least it's a W, though. That's a W.
I guess. I mean, you don't just go into Amherst and walk out with the W, Larry. So we'll see.
Not without Cody Schrader and Darius Robinson. You got to reinvent the wheel this year.
Cody Schrader at rookie camp. Wow.
Yeah.
And the reports that I got from beyond the time that we were there, they're like, this guy is unbelievable. Luckily, me planting my Mizzou flag as often as possible has now made me the go-to for people texting me Cody Schrader praise from Inside 4949. So keep it coming, guys.
Yeah, and Schrader didn't impress me in the mini camp, but I didn't expect him to. But I saw a great quote from a scout who said, Cody Schrader, if you let him in your building, you'll never he'll never get out. You'll never let him out. Because once you've had him in your building, when you see how dedicated and how hard he works and what he brings to the table, and you're never going to get him out of your building. So that's good news. And I can't wait. I didn't expect him to look like much at the mini camp, and to me, he didn't look like much, but it doesn't worry me because to me, this kid did it in the SEC against the best defenders in the country. Oh, yeah. And I think everybody's going to be kind of like Cody Schrader until the preseason games. Once the preseason games start, that's when people are going to be like, Cody Schrader, huh?
Yeah. Good luck to JP Mason.
Yeah. Oh, I know. He's going to have a hard time.
Good luck to Elijah Mitchell, too. They might carry 5 backs with a fullback because they'll probably want to keep Mitchell around just because. But with the additions that they made on special teams, which is roughly all of their additions this offseason, and the way that the kick return is going to operate, I have no idea what's going on there. And by the way, like coaches around the league don't seem to really have a tried and true game plan for the kickoffs yet. They're not sure if they want to go big or small, or if they want to run plays or just sort of play it like it is. Like the preseason games are going to be fascinating. Week 1 is going to be fascinating with that new kickoff rule. But JP Mason, where he made his hay, the reason he was still on this team is because he was a special teams guy. He was somebody who really did help the 49ers on special teams. Now there's one facet of special teams that I don't think he has any value in. I could be wrong about that, but we'll see. And in the punt game, there's only 2 gunners. So I'm really interested to see what they do at the running back position. Good problem to have. A lot of good running backs, in my opinion.
No doubt. So they get the week 9 bye. They come out in week 10. They get Tampa on the road. I got that as a W. I know Tampa's pretty good, but I think this game. My big fear with this game was that it was going to be in September, and it's not. It's week 8. The weather will cool down. Tampa will cool down. That's the right time to go there. I like
maybe Larry. Who's to say these days? I mean, who's to say? Regardless, I do think a little bit of humidity will do the Niners good. They won't have to travel after a game, right? You get the bye week. You're healthy. A concern can be rust going on the road, post-bye, come out a little sluggish. But if I had to place one bet on the entire NFL season, it's that Baker Mayfield is turning back into a pumpkin, baby. Cinderella only lasts so long. He's jumped from team to team. He has his year. Then he looks like, I guess, Baker Mayfield again. He got his money. He proved his point. He's going to look like Baker Mayfield again. It's not to say that he shouldn't start in the NFL. It's just to say that he's going to be starting for a losing team. I like a lot of the guys on Tampa. They've been sort of holding on by a thread over there. I don't feel like they've taken a step forward. It doesn't feel like the next wave is ready to take over there. And they got a quarterback who simply should not be trusted this season. So give me the Niners. And of course, all of this is very contingent on health, injuries,
of course, yeah.
Like the war of attrition that is the NFL. But if we're playing Madden and we're being conservative and all that stuff, I still think that I'll take the Niners quarterback any day of the week. I'll take the Niners roster pretty much across the board, save for maybe a position or two. And I think that the Niners coming off a bye week get the job done against Baker Mayfield, who I just don't think poses much of a threat this season.
Week 11, it's Niners against Seattle, and this is the home game against Seattle. Once again, I see Seattle coming, but I like the Niners to win that game. Mm-hmm. They do fire against Seattle. They bring energy, they bring effort, they bring focus. Something about their Seattle wakes them up. I like the Niners getting a win there, but Kev thought the Niners are going to lose that game.
That's fair.
What do you think?
I mean, I have it down as a win on my column in the Merc, but that might be the time where Mike McDonald has that defense figured out. And that's a very scary proposition for the 49ers. But again, we got to come back. It's a quarterback and head coach league. I really like their head coach. I really think he's sharp. If anyone should be a head coach as a defensive coordinator, it's him. But man, they got Geno Smith or Sam Howell back there. I got to pick the Niners in this one.
Yeah. Seattle hasn't conquered the quarterback thing yet. Then it's Niners at Green Bay. Mm-hmm. And this is going to be week 12. So this is going to be, a cold game. It's not going to be, ridiculous cold, but it's going to be a cold weather game.
Yeah.
But I like the Niners to get a win in an all-timer. I think this is this game is going to be I think going to be a fantastic game. I think it's going to kind of lock in that attitude that, Jordan Love against Brock Purdy, Niners against the Packers is going to be one of the preeminent NFL rivalries in the next 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
And I think this game's not going to disappoint, but I like the Niners to squeeze one out in an all-timer.
I got the Packers in this one, mainly because the Packers have that little extra ammunition, right? You think about what happened to them last year. They had that game in their hands, and frankly, they choked it away more than the 49ers took it away. You can make the inverse argument with the Detroit game in the NFC Championship. I mean, yes, the Lions choked, but it was mostly the 49ers just finding themselves and kicking ass for the final quarter. Green Bay choked that one away, and that's a taste they got to get out of their mouth. It doesn't rectify anything. It doesn't change the past, but they're going to have this one circled for a long time, whereas the Niners, I don't think they're circling any of the games on their schedule, save for maybe Kansas City, but it just doesn't seem like them. A young Green Bay team, you want to talk about an arrow pointing up. I mean, it could not be more 90 degrees exactly pointing up. And I do think it will be a good game. I do think that these are very evenly matched teams in a lot of areas. I like a lot of what Green Bay's done. And going back to the Seattle game, I think there's going to be a physical toll that comes out of that game. I think Seattle is going to be hitting very hard. I think that they are going to bring the wood in a way that they really haven't in recent years. In college football, we call it a body blow game. I think that's a body blow game. You got Thanksgiving coming up a couple days after. You got to go to Green Bay. That's always a pain in the ass. I'm going to take the Packers here, and I hope it's an all-timer. Truth be told, I couldn't care less who wins or loses. I just want to watch great football. I think I'm going to get that, but I think the Packers have just that little extra something for this game, whereas the Niners maybe don't have that same kind of juice, and that might be the difference in the contest.
Yeah, I can respect that. I will say this, though. When I watch, when I watched Niners Seattle when in the Harbaugh era, Seattle won all those games.
Yep.
And why did they win all those games? Because Russell Wilson made more good plays than Colin Kaepernick, Colin Kaepernick. I mean, I think people forget Colin Kaepernick was an enormous talent. He was an enormous runner. He had an unbelievable arm. He was as good a physical athlete that's, maybe ever played the quarterback spot. When you figure size, speed, arm strength, I mean, the guy really had this unbelievable skill set. But Russell Wilson was a killer competitor who made all the right plays.
That's right.
And always outplayed him. And now I look at Green Bay and I look at Jordan Love and I see Colin Kaepernick. And when I look at the Niners and I look at Brock Purdy, I see Russell Wilson. Now Russell Wilson's on the Niners. Now this physical freak that the Niners used to have is on Green Bay's team. So if they play 10 times, Niners are going to win 8. Green Bay's going to win 2 in those 2 games. Jordan Love's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But Brock Purdy's going to win 8 of 10. And I really think the Niners have their Russell Wilson in Brock Purdy. And I think the Packers have their Colin Kaepernick and Jordan Love. And thus I'll take the Niners to get the win because
I'll say something here. I made that Russell Wilson Purdy comparison, I think week 17 of last year, maybe a little bit later in a column. It was not well received. I stand by it. Appreciate that you have the same opinion.
Think about it. I mean, how many of those games did Seattle beat the Niners
just
at the end with
magic?
Russell Wilson running out the clock on them by getting key first downs.
That's right.
That's what Brock Purdy did. And when Brock Purdy slid forward against Seattle and put the ball forward, remember that play? That was so Russell Wilson-esque. And really, since Purdy's shown up, the Niners kind of have the upper hand here. I I respect the hell out of John Schneider, and I think McDonald's a great young coach.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Seattle is going to be a force to be reckoned with if they can find a quarterback. I would have been so scared if they had gotten Michael Penix in this draft that they didn't.
Thank
and so they're still
Atlanta.
leaning on Geno and the kid from Carolina
and White Jameis, which is Sam.
Yes.
There's the other thing to note about Green Bay, Larry. Sorry to interrupt there, but like last year, the first half of the season for Jordan Love was garbage to the point where people were wondering if Jordan Love had a future with this team. Now, of course, everyone just presumes he's going to win MVP or at least be a serious MVP candidate last year. What Green Bay did was they went max protect a lot, and they would run 2-man routes and just let Jordan Love's arm talent do the work. I don't think that model can work moving forward. I just don't. It's too simplistic. It's too obvious. And yes, the 49ers took 2.5, 3 quarters off against them in the playoffs. That was also coming off a bye, a little bit of rust, a little bit of entitlement. And when it finally clicked, I mean, it clicked pretty spectacularly. And yes, Green Bay choked it away too. And a lot of it was because the 49ers knew that they were only running 5 or 6 plays. They were telegraphing every play. And finally, Steve Wilks got his head out of his ass and figured out, hey, maybe we should run defenses to stop those 5 or 6 plays. I don't know what the hell he was doing all week, but luckily something got figured out at halftime. At week 12, we're going to know if Jordan Love is the real deal or not. I still think the jury should very much be out on him based on the schematics that brought him to prominence last year. And I'm going to question it. I don't have any faith that can be an offensive model moving forward. Credit to LaFleur for figuring out a way to make him passable, beyond passable. He was really, really good. But now you have an entire offseason of tape. Now you got to come up with something new. Now he actually has to run a timing and accuracy offense. I don't know if he can do that. And by week 12, we might know for sure that he cannot do that, in which case me picking the Packers is going to look pretty stupid.
They do have Josh Jacobs, and he's a great player.
Dudes,
there's no question.
And that defense got ferocious. They got rid of a couple of guys who were and they brought in really good players. They have a hell of a football team, but it's quarterbacks and head coaches, baby.
Yeah. So I like the Niners. We both like the Niners there. Now let's go to week 13. They go from cold weather Green Bay to cold weather Buffalo. And I'm going to say this is a loss. I got this down as a loss, and
has to be.
I don't know how it's going to work out, but it's a tough place to play. It's a really tough place to play after Thanksgiving. Josh Allen is a great player.
Yep.
Buffalo, I think, is a well-coached team. I think by week 13 they'll have it rolling.
Yeah.
As I said, I think the Niner Green Bay game is going to be an all-timer. So I think there's going to be an emotional fall from their win over Green Bay and how momentous it was. And then here we are traveling back the next week to Buffalo.
After Thanksgiving, by the way. So you get Thanksgiving, then you get to go to Buffalo.
Hard family, hard, if you got a family and that whole thing, there's the distractions. So, yeah, I like Buffalo to get the win there.
You think about the problem. I mean, they've never faced Josh Allen before. You think about the problems that this team has had in the past with running quarterbacks. I mean, Lamar Jackson and obviously Russell Wilson and even Kyler Murray to a degree on crappy teams. I mean, they do not handle running quarterbacks well at all. Even a guy like Kirk Cousins can make them pay because he moves well in the pocket, even though he's slow as dirt. Josh Allen is something close to a nightmare scenario at quarterback. And I think everyone could go, well, he lost Diggs. He lost Diggs halfway through last season. They were phasing him out of that offense. They were going 2 tight ends. They were going with Shakir. I do think 13, sorry, I'm always with the numbers, not necessarily the names, but losing him is going to be a thing. But, they get the kid out of, what was it, Florida State? They got Keon Coleman.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know if he's very bright, but that dude can play some football. And I think that Buffalo is going to be better because they don't have Stephon Diggs. As weird as that sounds, less drama, more straightforward. They have to run the ball. It's something they figured out late last year. They did it fairly well, certainly much better than they were doing it. I think, they won't have the offensive coordinator chaos. They won't have whatever the hell happened with Al-Qaeda and all that crap going on with Sean. Like they were a hot mess last year, and they doubled down They doubled down on the coaching staff to a degree. They doubled down on Josh Allen and trusting him. I think they're going to be a very good football team, and their injury luck has to swing the other way. That defense was down to third stringers by the playoffs last year. I think Buffalo is going to be a very formidable team. I think that's an opportunity for them to show, hey, we haven't gone anywhere. You might have put us in the back burner for a while, thought our window was over. Guess what? Wide open, win at home. If that game is anything below 40 degrees, it's going to be a pain in the ass for the 49ers. They're going to be working for those heat benches coming off of Thanksgiving. I just have a very hard time imagining the 49ers winning that game. It doesn't mean they're not a great team. It just means that they're going to lose that game. And, guess what? They're going to lose other games too.
I'm usually the kind of guy that has to touch the stove to realize it's hot and make my own mistakes. But thank you to Sean McDermott. And I feel that I can live. I've lived vicariously through you, and now I kind of know because you went through it. Don't use Al Qaeda in any kind of analogy.
No, it's typically, that's typically the third rail, maybe the fourth and the fifth. Don't work in
a certain dictator from Germany. Don't. And don't go into any kind of
just get a list of the worst people. Worst people in history. Don't follow their lead. Just a general standard.
Don't use them in analogies. It will work out well for you. I mean, I've learned that.
They did play a lot better. No, I'm
kidding. It worked. All right. Okay. Here's where I'm going through this thing: win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Now we're in week 14, and the Niners just lose to Buffalo, and they come home to take on the Chicago Bears. And I think the Bears are going to be ambushed this year. I think the Bears are going to get their doors blown off. Lots of people think, oh, Chicago. Okay, so you got week 1, they play home against Tennessee, and Caleb's in his first game. Yeah. And the Bears are good at home. But if they don't win that game against Tennessee, that probably is a little bit further down the road in their development than the Bears are in some ways, especially at quarterback. Then they go week 2 at Houston, Monday Night Football, CJ Stroud. That's a loss.
No doubt.
Then they go at Indy. I think that's a loss. And then they go Rams at Chicago. And even though the Bears are good at home, what are the odds that Caleb Williams in his 4th career game in Chicago, where they don't have a great history of great offense, they're going to be able to outscore the Rams, who I think might have maybe the most explosive offense in the league. And they put up 30 at will. I think the Bears get ambushed, are 0 for September. But I think they're going to somehow get up off their feet later in the year and start winning games because of their killer defense and some of their weapons. And believe it or not, I have the Niners losing to the Bears. And I know that there's a lot of people going, oh, my God, you're crazy.
No, there's always
But you got to predict at least one game that you think is automatically a W. And you got to project that as an L, because that's the way this league goes. And I'm taking the Bears to beat the Niners in week 14.
Now, because I picked the Packers to win, and then Buffalo to win, this is going to be the
3 losses in a row
do the Niners have it? This is going to be when we all in the media start freaking out about the Niners. So listen, I'm not a Caleb Williams guy. You and I were both Michael Penix. I do not see it. I've known Matt.
I don't either. I really don't see it.
I don't get
people who are celebrating Caleb as this like all-timer.
USC sucked. They sucked.
USC was bad last year. This kid, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's the nail painting. Maybe it's the crying. Maybe it's the I want part ownership of the team.
That's his dad.
Maybe it's how he seemed to be more anointed as the best player. Yeah. His highlight reel is the best,
no doubt.
But playing quarterback is so much. I don't know. I mean, first round quarterbacks bust at a high rate. So you got to almost picture how they're going to succeed and then how they're going to fail. I think he's a bust, man. I think he's going to be a bust.
They got some receivers, but he can't. Much like I was saying with Love, like I have zero faith whatsoever that he can run a timing and accuracy offense, and that's the only thing that works in the NFL. It's the only thing. And some guys have better teams around him and even more talent, maybe a better knack for running the ball, and can get away without doing timing and accuracy until the playoffs come around. And then Lamar Jackson is just standing in the pocket trying to do something that he simply cannot do. There's a lot of guys. I mean, you could even get on Josh Allen about this at times. And when you think about when Patrick Mahomes has struggled, what's been the issue? Timing and accuracy. Can't get on the same page as his receivers, not necessarily hitting them where they need to be hit, which is basically putting a ball in a pocket in their chest and hoping that it stays that way. Like, it's all about timing and accuracy, and they're betting on, oh, this guy can throw the ball 80 yards in the air. It's like, who gives a damn? Can he throw a 7-yard slant on time?
I mean, not only that, I mean, I don't know if you
Footwork is egregious.
How much you follow the Bears. Now, my family, on my mom's side of the family, they're all from Chicago, and so I do follow the Bears quite a bit, and I'm talking a lot of Bears with family members, so I'm always looking at the Bears. I don't see it. I just don't see it. I don't see the Bears. I mean, I don't know if you saw the interview the other day, but the receiver that they have, who's their best receiver from Carolina? DJ Moore. DJ Moore said in an interview the other day that Fields is better.
Yeah.
Did you see that? He's like, Justin Fields is better. Justin Fields did some good things. He's got some guys there. And if I'm right and the Bears get off to a ugly start, and Caleb could be, that could be a very unpopular decision, especially if Fields gets any field time in Pittsburgh and wins games. But even if he doesn't, even if it's Russell Wilson all year, if they just, look at how quickly the bloom was off the Bryce Young, rose. It didn't take long. You go 0-4 to start your year, and suddenly everybody that said you're an all-timer and you're the next Andrew Luck and you're this and you're that, everybody bails.
And I don't like
he's got weapons, but I mean, and I think the all-line's getting better, but I like their defense. I think their defense on all three levels has potential to be pretty good, but no.
That's if they
maybe
lose,
in year
it's his
two,
fault.
maybe in year three, but this kid's not hitting the ground and dominating the NFL. I don't think
the Bears had gone out and gotten Kirk Cousins, they would be in such better shape because a lot of that roster is ready to go. A lot of that roster can compete, not just in the NFC North, like in the NFC in general. That defense was elite down the stretch once they got Sweat. And Eberflus can coach it up. He did it in Indianapolis, and he finally got his act together, saved his job in Chicago second half. The reason that they kept losing is because their quarterback sucked. And you're throwing a kid who has terrible footwork, all the arm talent in the world, all the improvisational skills in the world, and you're asking him to go out there and be a competent quarterback. I don't need you to do any of the cool stuff. Just go out there and run an offense. It's the one thing that I have not seen him do yet, not at Oklahoma, certainly not at USC, and I don't trust the coaching in Chicago. I mean, anything is better than what he got from Lincoln Riley, but like, geez Louise, like, is it Luke Getsy, the offensive coordinator? Like, who the hell's the offensive coordinator? It's somebody on a 1-year contract, that's for sure.
I'll make my boldest prediction yet, and that is before the end of the year, there will be people in Chicago talking up Tyson Bagent and Austin Reed.
Yeah, I think
Western Kentucky quarterback is good.
He rips it.
Bagent has some juice too.
He had up and down.
And there by the end of the year, people are going to be talking about Caleb versus Bagent versus Reed.
The amount of back foot interceptions this guy's going to throw when and they're going to be running Keenan Allen on deep routes, just exploding his knees. And, like DJ Moore got good yardage last year. A lot of it was on screen plays. Like the Bears messed up. They should have traded one for a competent quarterback. They should have gone out and gotten, even a Geno Smith would be better. And you know what? Maybe I'm eating my words. Maybe it all works out, but it would be a pretty dramatic 1-2 for Caleb Williams to go from what we've seen so far into just, Johnny accuracy, just, supercomputer quarterback. I mean, he's just out there slanging it. And that's a guaranteed recipe for a loss. You might win a game or two, but you ain't winning anything important. I'm taking the Bears. I'm taking the Niners to beat the Bears here, and I'm taking it in a convincing. I think they just
I hear you. I
work
hear you.
him over.
I
I'm
wouldn't
with
be
you. I get where you're coming from, though.
I wouldn't be surprised though if
No.
Austin Reed or Badgett plays well with the Bears. And as he said, they do have some good players.
One
They
of
do
those
have some
Colt
good
McCoy
defense.
Arizona games where
Yeah, just like
yeah.
the Niners roll in and it's like they just lost to Buffalo and they're like, well, at least we got to win next week, and they're just going to roll their jocks out there and they're going to get beat by a Bears team that's going to hustle and outwork them.
So
all right, here we go.
Week 9-4 collectively.
Yeah, week 15 now, and now it's Rams at home, and I have this as a loss, which means I also have 3 losses in a row: Buffalo, Bears, Rams. I think this is where the panic sets in. This is where it's like, what the hell? And I think this is where the Niner defense struggles, and I like the Rams to sweep the Niners and get the week 15 game at Levi's.
Yeah, I like Thursday night games at home. Obviously, it's not any sort of prohibitive travel for the Rams, but again, you get the short week. Not having to get on a plane on Wednesday is pretty nice, even if it's just an hour flight. I predicted this one to be the game of the year. I think the Rams and the 49ers are going to have just incredible battles. I'm going to take the Niners to win it, mainly because they're at home. Maybe that's just the very small margin that separates these two teams, just that 1 hour flight. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Niners here, and I don't feel great about it.
Some 916 49er. Larry is passing me off. I think he means pissing me off.
Aren't we all?
It's just an opinion. It's just an opinion.
Yeah.
And you know what? Here's the thing. We could sit there and say the Niners, before we go any further, the Niners are favored to win every game this year. Right now, the 49ers are the favorite to win every single game. So if we just took the Niners, well, they're the better team and they're favored, they're going to win.
17-0.
It was 17-0, and Mercury Morris, send the champagne.
Dolphins.
And yeah, exactly. Instead, what's going to happen is that there's going to be some bumps in the road.
Get this, guys get injured in the NFL. And as we saw last year, it takes 1.5 injuries, 2 injuries to completely derail the entire 49ers offense, where they lost 3 games in a row. Like, no one wants to be as uncouth as to predict individual players getting injured. But I'll tell you this, 49ers were shockingly healthy last year for a team that had almost no depth. And I have a hard time believing that injury luck is going to continue. So on a macro level, I feel like the 49ers are going to be eating it a little bit more in that regard. And that regard defines seasons. So Super Bowl hangover, probable injury luck not going their way, or at least just the pendulum swinging to the other side. Like, we all, I get it. Everyone wants the 49ers to win every game. That's not how reality works. And by the way, even if they lose 3 in a row, even if they lose to Chicago, like, this is still a team that's going to make the playoffs. This is still a team that's going to contend for a Super Bowl. Hell, they might even win it. Who's to say? But we are doing a completely stupid thing right now by trying to predict in May what's going to happen in November after 11 weeks of NFL football. Let us cook, okay?
Yeah. This is our live stream.
Just like, we're all doing stupid stuff. Nothing could be smart. Nothing that's being stated. Like, we're trying to give insight and analysis and come across as smart. It is an inherently stupid exercise. It's fun as hell, and I'm enjoying it. But
it's fun. Yeah. Week 16, Niners against Miami in Miami. I think if you're going to go to Miami, man, this is the time of the year. This, especially after some cold weather games against Green Bay and Buffalo, this will be a welcome deal. And I like the Niners to get the win there in Miami.
I think this is the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are really going to need it. I think that Mike McDaniel knows which buttons to press with Kyle Shanahan. I think the Niners are going to be coming off that Thursday night game with the Rams, feeling pretty good. They get that mini bye and having to go to Miami. It's the weather's going to be nice and it's going to be beautiful and breezy, and everyone's going to be sipping pina coladas. Like, it's going to be a great time. I think that Miami has the firepower on offense to really break up a cover 3. We don't know if that's what the Niners are going to be running a lot, but that's what they say they want to run a lot this upcoming season. And I really worry about the big play threats of Miami. So again, in this very stupid exercise that has no bearing whatsoever on the real world that's yet to come. I'm going to take Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins in a game that they have to get, probably because this will be their Super Bowl, because they're not coming anywhere near the actual Super Bowl this year.
That's fair, because I mean, Dolphins are explosive. They can win. They've got a ton of speed, and it's going to, McDaniel against Shanahan on a fast surface. You never know. Now, Week 17 is the real hardest game to pick because it's Niners Lions, and it's I have it down as a loss, but I don't even know who's going to play in that game.
If you did, you'd make a lot of money, Larry. You're already doing well, but you would be. You wouldn't need this live streaming act.
I think they kind of blow it. They blew this one by giving us an awesome matchup, but I think on paper there's only probably about a 25% chance that we actually get the matchup.
Right.
Because one of these teams is likely not going to need the game, or there's going to be an injury. It's so late in the year. I mean, I would have loved this to have been one of the early games of the year as the rematch from last year. Instead, we're getting it in Week 17. I still think Detroit's going to get over, but I don't know what the circumstances are going to be. I'm taking Detroit. I feel like Detroit's definitely had a great offseason again, and they just keep, they needed corners. They added, Terrion Arnold. They added Enos Rakestraw. They added Amik Robertson. They got somebody else in free agency. They've now have DJ Reader. They added Marcus Davenport. They're better up front. They're better on the back end. They added Mahogany from Boston College in the 6th round to their offensive line. He's a brawler. Gives them another big time offensive lineman. They got weapons everywhere. I like Detroit.
I am with you. A lot of the same reason with Miami. A lot of the same reason I picked Green Bay. Like, there's going to be some unfinished business for the Lions. They need to prove that they can beat the 49ers. I will say this. I think just the way that it plays out in my mind, which of course is how it always plays out in the real world, Larry, is that both teams are going to need it, because both teams are going to be pushed harder this season in their division than last season. Again, I still think there's a big bust potential with Green Bay, but if Jordan Love is the guy, I mean, that is going to be one hell of a battle for the NFC North, and I think Minnesota might have it figured out by then. You mentioned all the great defensive players that they brought in the draft in Detroit. This would be the time where they all have their legs under them, right? They're not so worried about the speed of the game anymore. They either have it or they don't, and I think a lot of those guys are going to have it. I think Detroit is going to come out something to prove. They're a team that, plays off emotion with their head coach and Dan Campbell, right? And I think they bring the wood in that game, and then Jared Goff does what Jared Goff does in the playoffs, and it was all for naught. But I think they get Week 17.
Yeah, I mean, I could see the Niners losing to Detroit in Week 17 and beating Detroit again in the playoffs, whether it be in Detroit or in Santa Clara. Week 18, Niners Cardinals on the road in Arizona. If the Niners don't need it, maybe they could lose, but I think in my scenario, they will have lost some games down the stretch. They will need it, and I think they'll get Arizona. Arizona's culture is changing, but it hasn't changed that fast. They're still going to phone in a Week 18 game and miss the playoffs.
Well, Kyler Murray's not going to play in this game because there'll be 42 injuries from being 5'7" back there that they'll say, well, nothing can be accomplished. By the way, they might be out on Kyler Murray by the end of this year, in which case they're going to be, edging for that draft pick. So, I agree. The 49ers very much might need this one, whether it's for the division or home field advantage in the playoffs for a round or two. Like, I do think that the Niners are going to have to play a full 18 this year. And I think that Arizona, which again is just going to be Niners fans, is a good place to have to get one. So I'll take the Niners, and I got them at 11-6. I think you do as well.
Yeah, we have them at 11-6, and that is right under the over/under, right? I think 11.5.
11.5,
is the number. So I mean, whether it goes the way we think it's going to go, we're kind of seeing it the way Vegas sees it, as far as right there in the number. I have them losing to the Bears and still going 11-6. Heck, we all know they could easily beat the Bears, and if they do, in my schedule, that means they're 12-5 and over. So I guess this is a long way of saying don't bet the over/under on the Niners.
Yeah, I would not take the over. I certainly with the talent that they have, and there's absolutely a way in which they get the over. Like, no question about it. As you said, they're going to be favored, or they are currently favored in every game. And I imagine a lot of those hold, if not the vast majority, hold into the season. But as I mentioned earlier, like the injury luck is probably not going to be their way. That depth is going to be tested. Obviously, I like their draft. I've made no secret about that, but I don't know if that really changes the depth of this team all that much. They're going to be riding a lot of guys in positions that they probably didn't want to ride them. And we've had record-setting quarterbacks play in games for the last 2 years. I think it'd be foolish to think that Brock Purdy is going to play all 17 games this year, given that he's not exactly 6'6" and 250 pounds. You just hope it's as small as possible. I don't like their backup quarterback situation compared to last year. And so there's probably an L somewhere along the path too. I think that there's a narrow band to get the over on 11.5. And I think there are a lot of possibilities to get the under. But again, I have a hard time seeing the Niners not make the playoffs. And hell, 11-6 might win the division. Probably best wild card team at worst. The Niners they only need 9 to get in, most likely, with the expansion of the playoffs to 7. I think that they're going to be a comfortable 10 team. I would have a very hard time going under 10, but a very hard time going over 11.5 to 12. So
yeah, I like. Purdy, as long as Purdy's there, I feel good about them.
Yeah.
I can't bet them to go under with Purdy there. Right. But at the same time, they were the 1 seed last year, and I don't know that that's going to go the same way this year. I could see them having to go out on the road this year and maybe getting it done. There's a couple stats here that I want to throw out on the Niners season, or on the Niners schedule. When you use last year's record as like the barometer, the Niners have the 13th most difficult schedule. So if it's based on last year's records, which is not a great way to look at it, because last year's record, is a totally different deal.
Right.
If you go by the 2024 win totals in Vegas as the barometer,
that's a good one.
For the win total projections, the Niners have they're 18th in strength of schedule. So that I thought was kind of interesting. The Niners will travel a ton, as they always do. All the West Coast teams do. They'll travel the 5th most miles of any team in the NFL this year, which I usually they're top 2 or 3. This year they're 5th.
Right.
The Niners have two
and that's my trips to Buffalo and Miami.
two short round weeks.
Seattle and the Rams, yeah.
Yeah, they're 19th in the they were 19th in the NFL in 2024. Are short road weeks. They have 2 short road weeks this year. So that I think there's only 1 team or 2 teams that have 3 short road weeks. So they're right there at the top of the list as far as short road weeks.
Oh yeah, well, week 1 Minnesota, and then when they play that Thursday, they go to Seattle. That's a short road week, so they're early.
Yeah,
it's week 2 and week 5.
Then also the 49ers have 8 games where they have a net rest. Where they have less net rest than their opponent. 8 games this year where they're going to go into that game having less rest than their opponent. That is 2 more than any other team in the NFL. And we didn't do this at least I didn't do this knowing which games they have less rest than their opponents. Yeah. But just to put this little nugget in perspective, they had a -13 rest disadvantage against the Bengals last year, and they got housed. They got destroyed. Their Niner defense still hasn't stopped Cincinnati. Cincinnati did whatever they wanted in that game. That game was a blowout. So that right there. What do you think of that, Peter? I mean, 8 games this year where they're going to have a net rest, disadvantage against their opponents, and it's 2 more than any other team in the league. I mean,
that's wild.
It's something, I thought the Niners were the NFL's cash cow, and they wanted to kind of, see them in the playoffs. If anything, it looks like they're making this road even more difficult, and all the more reason, by the way, when you hear that stat to lean towards the under.
Yeah, that is a great stat. I mean, I will say that rest is a double-edged sword. right? Sometimes you come out rusty, especially good teams come out rusty. Bad teams come out and they're typically fixed a little bit, right? They spent that extra week working on, simplifying or making more complex. They were able to get down into the nitty-gritty of scheme, maybe knock some guys off the depth chart, sort of save their jobs. They're gonna save their jobs by putting in that extra week of work at the facility during the bye week. So I'd really like to know which games those are, because I think we could get a pretty good idea. But if you're like a team like the Lions or the Packers or some of these really good teams, Chiefs, some of these really good teams that the Niners play, especially if those rest disadvantage games are early, which I imagine some of them are, just given that it lines up with those Monday nights and Thursday nights that are early on the schedule. Like, there could be a rust factor too, where the Niners are coming in, they're rolling, they got good momentum from the last game, they don't want to squander it, and they go out and they kick some ass because the other team is flat-footed, having coming off a week in Cabo or whatever. So it is a double-edged sword, but I'm with you. I mean, I think it's more detriment than benefit, to be sure. There's a reason that stat is compiled, and you're right, Niners should be the cash cow, but and clearly they are, with all these primetime games that they're going to play, which I don't even think we've seen the half of it with the flex scheduling and stuff. The Niners could end up with another Thursday night game in the final, like week 13 or something like that. Like there's a lot of stuff that can happen with the way that the NFL works the schedule these days. It's really hard to take the over, but again, it doesn't particularly matter to me with this team this season. And perhaps it doesn't matter to them either. Where they finish in the NFC West, just get in the damn tournament. You're probably not getting the bye, just given the way your schedule plays out and it being backloaded. Get your ass in the tournament and play your best football then. And if this team has the character that I think it could have, we're going to see that. And if this team falls apart early, we're gonna know pretty early if this team has it or not. Because again, if they get out of September with anything less than a winning record, it might be guns away.
Niners also have 4 games against opponents coming off the bye. That's the most in the NFL. Yeah. It's not just the most in the NFL. It's tied for the most in the NFL dating back to 2002.
That's just mean.
That's interesting.
Cool.
I mean, that, and we'll see. I mean, as you stated the question, the bye, the Andy Reid bye record. The Chiefs are one of those games. Dallas is one of those games. So I mean, it's just
back to back. Here are 2 of your biggest games of the year. The other team's coming off a bye. Luckily, they're both at home. That does matter. But Andy Reid coming off a bye. I mean, until it's not true. Had I known that, I would have said that just as much as don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. I don't bet off of Andy Reid coming off a bye either. So combine those 2 things, I might be taking the Chiefs on an alternate line in that game.
Okay, Niners will be favored in every game. We mentioned that. They don't play on Thanksgiving. They don't play on Christmas. As a family man myself, I'm just glad for that. I was there last year at Levi's on Christmas night, and I brought my son Kevin, and
what a day.
And it was great to have him there with me. But I mean, it sucks.
At least you could talk about something, because that game sucked.
Yeah, and I look at the rest of my family, and I'm like, they're like, Dad, you're leaving? It's like 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And it's like, yeah, I got to do the pregame, and then I got to do the postgame. And it's like, I don't know. It's like, I get why that. Yeah, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to work on Christmas. I don't want to work on New Year's Day. I don't mind.
New Year's Day was fine. That's a BS
but Christmas. Anyway. Yeah, I mean, Christmas and Thanksgiving. No, I don't. I'm glad the Niners are not.
I'll say this: I got away with it because Thanksgiving was in Seattle. My wife's family is in Seattle, so I got a double win there, in which I got holiday pay, got to go watch a good football game. Well, at least from the 49ers perspective. Still had my turkey, all that stuff, but didn't have to spend Thanksgiving with the in-laws while also still being in the Seattle area. So I didn't have to do the Thanksgiving dinner and all that weird stuff that happens at Thanksgiving dinner. Just got to be amongst the family. I felt like that was a big win. Probably once in a lifetime, though. Very happy that the Niners are avoiding Thanksgiving days. But again, why didn't they build the schedule around Missouri football schedule so that I could go see them play Auburn or Alabama or some team other than UMass? We'll never really know the answer. Probably personal spite, though.
Missouri's coming on, man. They look good in the bowl game, and their coach is fired up. Okay. as far as a couple other things on the schedule, and then we'll hit a couple more things and we'll chat. One of the things I always look for is which team is going to get destroyed in September, and then just the whole thing falls apart. Here are my 5 teams that I think could fall apart in September. One's New England. They go at Cincy, home against Seattle with a rookie quarterback. You're going up against Seattle's defense. At Jets, at Niners. They easily could be out of the chute with Drake May going 0-4. Easily.
Yeah, have fun with that, guys.
The Rams could get worked. They go, or I should say the Raiders could get worked. And the Raiders always get screwed. I mean, it's like Al Davis sued the league, and the Raiders have been getting screwed on the schedule and everything forever. The tuck game and everything else. Yeah. Listen to the way the Raiders start. At Chargers, loss. At Baltimore, loss.
Yeah.
Week 3, home against Carolina, and then they go Cleveland at home. So they go 2-2 as far as home and road. But the first 2 are absolute losses on the road. And then you get, Carolina, Cleveland. I bet you they wind up splitting that one. I almost guarantee you the Raiders are going to go 1-3 in the first month of the year.
Oh, yeah.
At best.
Yeah.
So there's one. Then there's Washington.
You're sure Aiden O'Connell's not going to get it done there? I mean, we're sure it's Gardner Minshew. It might be
Carter Bradley. I think Carter Bradley might wind up being the guy.
Yeah.
Washington goes at Tampa. This is Jaden Daniels and the new Commanders outfit at Tampa. Tough, really, really, really tough game in week 1 when you think of the humidity. That's going to be a really tough game.
100 degrees, 100% humidity. To be fair, Washington's going to be practicing in that. They practice still in Virginia, and it might even be worse than Florida. No breeze.
Yeah. I mean, there's no question. The district.
Jaden Daniels coming from the Bayou, baby. He'll be ready. I don't know about the rest of them.
He's used to it, but it was his first game, and he's going up against a playoff team with a good defense.
Yeah, here's Vita Vea. Enjoy that.
Right. Kalijah Cansey wants to see you in his office. Then week 2, home against the New York Giants. And I don't have the stat in front of me, but I kind of have the recollection that the Giants seem like they've got some ownage on the Commanders. And maybe I'm wrong.
I don't think that's been very hard to do as of late. So
yeah, but I mean, so you got a division game. If nothing else, you got a division game.
Big one.
Then you go at Cincinnati. That's a freaking loss.
That's Monday Night Football.
And then at Arizona, and Arizona's got a tough. Arizona opens at Buffalo, home against the Rams, and home against Detroit. They very easily could take on an 0-3 Arizona team who's going to be fighting like hell at home. So the Commanders could, even though there's a lot of people that are like the Commanders, new era, and they're going to turn it around, they could be 0-4 out of the chute. Yeah. So that one. And the other one was the Rams. At Lions, at Arizona, Niners at home, at Bears. I think the Rams are likely to survive, but I think that's a really tough start.
I think there's a sneaky one here, and I think we generally just give this team the benefit of the doubt because they've really deserved it. Like, I don't think anyone's wrong for doing it. But Baltimore starts Thursday night, Kansas City, that kickoff game. Then they get the Raiders. So, hey, here's a little bit of a reprieve. Long week, you get the Raiders. Then at Dallas, which – if Dallas is going to be anything, they'll have to show it early. Yeah. And then they go Buffalo Sunday Night Football at home. Then they get Cincinnati after that. I mean, Baltimore, right. They should probably win a lot of those games, but there's one cupcake out of all of those. Those are some pretty brutal games, and a lot of them are going to be marquee games with a lot of eyeballs on them. And, that changes the paradigm a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And there's always one team that you don't even bank on that's going to kind of fall apart. Maybe this year it's the Baltimore Ravens.
Wow.
All right, one last one on the schedule. What is there's also a bunch of games out there that people are really looking forward to. Do you have a game or two that you're looking at? I mean, I think week 1 is going to be awesome. I mean, Baltimore at Kansas City, I'm watching that. Green Bay at Philly and Brazil on Friday night, I'm watching that. Yeah. Raiders and Chargers and the Harbs debut, I want to see that. Rams and Lions, I want to see that. That's Stafford against Goff, two good quarterbacks that were traded for one another.
Selling some Sunday ticket here, Larry.
Jets, Niners on the Monday night game. I mean,
you don't need Sunday ticket for that one, but
there's 5 5 week 1 games that I just absolutely want to see.
There's some sneaky ones in there too. And again, this is all off of just sort of a morbid curiosity. This one's particularly morbid. Atlanta and Pittsburgh week 1. I mean, Kirk Cousins, Russell Wilson, two teams that think that they were a quarterback away finally have that quarterback, and one of them has to lose. I guess in theory, they could tie. Kirk Cousins is pretty good at tying. But in theory, 99% of the time, one of them is going to lose and maybe not feel like they have that guy that can get them over the hump. That one's going to be good for narrative.
And also Pittsburgh, in my mind, had one of the best drafts.
Yes,
but they also went offensive line 3 times, and offensive linemen notoriously take some time to make an impact.
They're coached up in college now.
Yeah. I mean, even if you plug and play Fatanu, Frazier, and Mason McCormick, and you have 3/5 of
those are 3 dudes. Those guys. If anyone could do it, it's literally those 3 guys.
Like, I love this draft for them long term, but as far as short term play, the Steelers may struggle this year, trying to kind of get that whole thing going.
Let me throw another game at you here. This is one I am in on the Colts in general. Anthony Richardson is the quarterback. I think that
Anthony Richardson.
I think that they have a chance to be the NFL's surprise team this year and really, really do something, like push it in the AFC. They get Houston in week 1, and we're going to find out if that was all a mirage with Houston. I don't know. Will Tank Dell play? He got shot. I mean, I shouldn't make light of it, but that is his current injury. Coming off of that horrific. Yeah, he got shot.
I thought it was just a regular injury.
No, he got shot.
He got shot.
Now, he also had his leg explode on him late last season, so I don't know if he was going to be back anyway. But like, Houston is a team that I think everyone is very high on, and you watch C.J. Stroud last year, and how could you not be? And obviously, we all know D'Amico's a hell of a guy, and Bobby Slowick is the other. Like,
they had another good draft. They got a bunch of good players.
Nick Caserio calling the shots. Like, they have something going there, but it does feel like, there might be a little bit of a sophomore letdown. It does feel like, okay, they were out well ahead of schedule. Do they come back to the pack a little bit? They get that first place schedule, right? Indianapolis is the team that would take the crown from them in that division. That game could go a long way to deciding that division, go a long way to deciding playoff seeding. Like, there's not a lot of week 1 games that carry some weight. They're mostly novelty and just, hey, this is going to be fun to watch, 2 good teams, and you don't think about it all that much again. This is a game that I think we might be thinking about come December when Houston and Indianapolis get together in week 1 in Indy. I'm all in on that game.
Yeah, no, Houston. And then Houston in week 2 gets the Bears at home. Yeah. We get Caleb against C.J. Stroud. I mean, that's going to be really good.
Football too. So we're all getting that one, baby.
Baltimore Chargers at SoFi, the Harbaugh Bowl 2. That's week 12. So that's Monday Night Football wrapping up Thanksgiving week. I think that is going to be awesome. A fun game. I think Houston Dallas is going to be a great game because I think Houston in that game is going to show that they are like I think right now people think, oh, Dallas is a Super Bowl contender and Houston's an up and comer. By the time we get to week 11, that's going to be Houston is the new it team in the state of Texas. And what the fuck happened to Dallas? I really think that's a game where people are going to be like, whoa, Houston's the dominating team and a Super Bowl contender and on a track for a championship, and Dallas is nowhere near that. So that's how I see that one.
I think we have a pretty good Christmas schedule. They're going to do Christmas on a Wednesday. Well, Christmas has always been on a Wednesday. They don't create the Gregorian calendar, but they're just going to play football on a Wednesday because they're imperialists. I don't know. They've just decided that they're taking it all. And what is it? It's
what is the Christmas schedule?
Christmas schedule, 2 games, both on Netflix. So
I have Netflix.
Fascinating. Everyone has now. I think it's like umbrellas. There's only 9 of them in the world. There's only 9 Netflix logins in the world, and we just trade them out. But Pittsburgh, Kansas City in Pittsburgh. Say what you will, like Pittsburgh always brings it on national TV games, especially on defense. And then you get Baltimore and Houston in Houston. Like, listen, we're going to be binging Bridgerton and flipping on those games, baby.
Yeah, I love both those games. Do you have Thanksgiving? What's Thanksgiving?
Let me pull
Bears,
it up here.
Lions. We getting Bears, Lions?
Yeah, we get Bears, Lions. We get Dolphins, Packers in Green Bay, and we get
Dallas, Washington.
And no, we get Dallas and the Giants in the
Giants.
Meadowlands. So
okay.
You could do better. You could do worse. I mean, Green Bay and Miami is going to be a hell of a lot of fun.
I'll tell you another game I'm looking forward to, October 27th, Bears at Washington, Caleb against Daniels.
Oh, yeah.
The
Bears
number one pick
versus
number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick. That's going to be good. And then, of course, August 1st, it all gets rolling. Bears-Texans Hall of Fame game.
Is that who's in the Hall of Fame game?
August 14th, Hall of Fame game. August 1st, I should say.
If you are a football dork, like Larry and I are, and I would hope all of you are, if you're still here, like, come on, you got to admit it to yourself, you are. I can't wait for the first kickoff of the season. I don't know what this thing's going to look like. I don't know if these teams are going to know what they're supposed to be doing, but like, it's probably ridiculous to be experimenting with such a, I guess now pivotal play. I mean, Sean Payton came out and thinks that teams are going to be scoring double-digit touchdowns off of kickoffs this year. It went from Dieter's bathroom break to now the most important play in the game because of one rule change, or I guess like 5 rule changes combined into one. And again, I've talked to a bunch of people about this because these are the kind of things that I think about. There is nowhere near a consensus on how teams are going to handle the kickoff. And it's really a shame that Bill Belichick is no longer coaching in this league, because I guarantee he'd have it figured out. And yet everyone else is just going to have to figure it out on their own. And it could look really ugly for a while. That first preseason game is going to be fascinating.
Who's going to excel in that? Like, because the Niners have Cody Schrader. The Niners have, they've got Danny Gray. They've got Jacob Cowing. They now have Isaac Garendo. They've got big, fast guys, small, fast guys. Yeah. They got Trent Taylor, guys who for sure are going to catch the ball, but they're not dynamic. I mean, you're right. This is a very much an unknown.
Throw Debo back there. You're only getting him for another year. Let's see what he's got.
You got Debo. You got Juice if you wanted to. I mean, what is going to be the mindset here? Is it going to be don't fuck it up and just put Juice or Trent Taylor back there, somebody with really dependable hands? Because, they signed Trent Taylor partially because they blew it in the Super Bowl, and I think it was on Kyle Shanahan's mind, and they're like, what, we can get Trent Taylor? He catches every punt. Well, but he returns them 3 yards. Well, we don't care if he's, can't return. All we care about is that we don't give it up on that play. Yeah. Are the Niners going to be Trent Taylor, we're going with him because he's safe and he won't give it up? Or are they gonna Danny Gray's gonna have a great preseason and they're gonna dream the Danny Gray dream? Cowing, Garendo. I mean, who do you think is gonna be their guy?
I mean, I think it will be Cowing, though. When he was returning punts at that rookie mini camp, he was doing it overhand, like trying to catch it like a pass, to the point where they had to put towels under his arms as to prevent him from lifting up his arms. And it's like, didn't you do this at Arizona? Like, you're just reinventing punt return from the basket catch to an over. Like, what are you doing, dude? So I thought it would be Cowing. It probably still should be Cowing, because I don't necessarily want to put somebody that I'm trusting to be an every down player, or even a very important situational player back there, but he's got to be on the roster. The other question that I think will be Cowing, I think they have a lot of good options there. I think the bigger question is, who's going to be in front of them? Are they going to go big? Are they going to, because there's not much room between the defense that's rushing and the offense that's blocking. So you don't need a bunch of tight ends and linebackers who need to move in open space and maybe they're able to lay wood on the guy. Like, there's not that much room to maneuver around dudes. Like, do you go with some even offensive linemen up front because there's just only 10 yards separating them? Is that even enough to negate the possibility of offensive linemen? Do you go big? Do you go crazy fast? Like, I don't know who the up guys are going to be.
A buddy who studied it said you're going to want guys who break tackles.
Yeah, as a receiver, absolutely. Yeah.
So as the return guy. You're going to want a guy who breaks tackles.
Number 19 or number 1? I'm not sure if Debo's change went through. I'd go with him.
1.
Another
19 problems is the handle, but 1 is the number.
Yeah, well, he's going to have a lot of problems this offseason. Regardless, I'll tell you another guy who breaks a lot of tackles, George Kittle.
Yeah,
throw his ass back there.
Well, I mean, it's going to be
Juwan Jennings breaks tackles. Throw his ass back there.
Juwan Jennings.
The other thing too is you can run plays now. So there's a lot, like in the XFL, they do like handoffs and stuff. which I know Kyle Shanahan won't do because on special teams, it's all about risk mitigation for him. But other teams are going to be doing cool things, and the Niners will not. So it's probably Trent Taylor.
It's probably Trent Taylor and take a knee. There you
go. We'll start at the 25, guys.
Yeah. Trent Taylor, we barely knew you in your back, and now
it's never going away. Risk mitigation.
We'll see about the crowd at Return Man. That's going to be a hard, hotly contested battle this summer. Were you at the rookie minicamp, or did you not were you not down there?
We talked for like 5 minutes afterwards. Yes, I was.
Okay. There. Okay. I'm zoning.
It's okay.
I'm zoning.
It's okay.
I this morning I said, "Hey, Guy Haberman, what'd you think of the thing?" And he's like, "I wasn't there." And then I'm like, "Oh, well, you know what? I forgot."
What was he doing?
So I'm forgetting who I'm talking to. I'm forgetting. So you were there. So give me your takeaway. That Grant and Dave went back and forth on this Pearsall thing, and it seems like it's gotten kind of contentious, but Dave really likes Pearsall and thought he looked great. He gave the Tony the Tiger. He looked great. Yep. Grant was like, and Grant's, David's more positive. Grant's a little bit more skeptical. We'll just say that. And, some people say he's negative, but whatever. He's more skeptical.
I think Grant has very good opinions. I think David sometimes has very good opinions. I have no ledger comparing
these guys are giants in this whole YouTube content creation game. They're both at the top of the list, and they both produce a lot of content. And I like both these guys. And I understand. To me, I understand where Dave was going because, you know what? When you watched Pearsall in some of the drills that they have him do. Yeah, you can see all those things that make him really good. I mean, he's got stop and start, and he's got quickness, short area quickness, and he's got really precise footwork, and he's got, you can see how he plucks the ball with his hands, and several of the positive traits of Ricky Pearsall did come out in the workout. Then from Grant's perspective, they did throw him 4 passes. Now they weren't thrown by Brock Purdy, but they were 4 passes that went to him, and it basically a couple were high. One was a deep ball that was didn't have a lot of arc on it. So he didn't necessarily make a bunch of catches, and we didn't see him really excel. So he's like, I don't know that it looked all that great. My take is that after watching him, and me, I try to be right. I try to analyze this correctly.
That's right.
What I see is a player that does have all those traits that Dave was talking about and that the Niners are talking about, which is the footwork and the ball skills and the catch radius and the hands, and it's all tied together, and he's very veteran in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I see that. My concern with Pearsall is just that he can get separation, and I saw it on the college film. I watched him in a bunch of games, not before the draft, but afterwards, and saw him get separation. Like, my question on draft day is this guy the guy that, I don't know if I thought he could get separation, but after watching him in college, I'm now a believer that he can get separation and he can beat the jam at the line. He's a bigger guy than you think. He's a stronger guy than you think. But my 2 major questions are when he gets separation, and now let's say he beats you off the line with a little shimmy and an arm over, and now he's got you, and you're turning and you're playing from a trail position, and he's got 2 steps on you. When he gets into the length of his route, I don't think he can maintain that separation against NFL quickness on the corner. I think those guys have a gear that this guy doesn't get to. So it's like he's got to beat you, separate, and then the ball's got to be there. And if it's not there, and then he just has to take off upfield, the guy who's trailing will catch him, and he'll be covered again, and he'll have to separate again. So my question with him is, does he have enough quickness and athleticism in that gear to maintain that separation through the entirety of the route? That's my first question. And the second one is just, I know he can take a pop in the college game, but in the middle of the field in the NFL, there's some bad guys, including C.J. Gardner-Johnson on the Eagles. If C.J. Gardner-Johnson packs a wall up in the middle of the field and knocks Ricky Pearsall with his best hit, does Ricky run the same way the rest of the game? Yeah. Does he still run carefree? Is he still, owning the middle, or is he kind of where is CJ Gardner-Johnson? And that's my second concern, is that once the hits start to mount and his job is like, hey man, he gets open in the middle of the field and he makes big catches and takes big hits. Well, once he takes a handful of those big hits, is he still as effective? So those are my two questions, but I definitely see why the Niners like him. And I do see how potentially with Brock Purdy, if they get on the same page and they really work together and Brock can get him the ball when he gets the separation, I think it potentially could be a prolific combination with great production. But those are my concerns. What do you think of my concerns, and what's your evaluation?
They're exceptionally fair concerns because they're the concerns I had on him, and I think I was higher on him than anybody coming out of college. And I'll answer the second one first. The amount of hospital balls that were thrown his way last year by Florida quarterbacks, it's as if they had a vendetta against their best receiver. They were out there looking to get him permanently injured. I mean, these are spine-busting balls that are nowhere near where he was in the route. This guy just kept running it, kept catching it. And yes, it is a lot different, the pack of the punch that comes in the NFL game versus the college game. But Brock Purdy, any of the three Niners quarterbacks are going to put the ball in a better position than what Ricky Pearsall had last season at Florida. And I saw a guy who was legitimately fearless. So I think it would take some pretty serious wallops to get this dude out of his game. And I think he's slippery in the open field. I wouldn't necessarily
Slick
say
Rick.
Slick Rick. I mean, yeah, he
what is he doesn't like the nickname? Is that right? Is that what I'm hearing?
It's coming anyway. Because slippery Rick, whatever, white boy Rick, I don't care. He has kind of that, I would not call like Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I know that's a very lofty comparison. I wouldn't say that he is a explosive player. I mean, he has pop off the line. He's a great technician. He always gets open. I think that the Niners could use Slick Rick in a very similar way. And when Amon-Ra St. Brown gets the ball in the middle of the field, it's not as if he's, Barry Sanders juking dudes left and right. He just has this knack for making that tackle that the linebacker or the safety or the nickelback is going for, to just sort of glance off the side of his pads as opposed to hitting him square in the thighs and taking him down. That's what I saw from Pearsall at Florida. And this is a guy who, now to your first point, consistently chose on choice routes the middle of the field. And a lot of that I have to presume, love to talk to him about it, a lot of that I'd have to presume is, well, if I go deep, my quarterback ain't getting me the ball. If I go deep, I don't stand a chance. So we didn't see a lot at the college level of that second speed, and certainly you're not going to get any closing speed from a lot of these college corners. I think it's fair to wonder if he has that second burst, but being used as a flanker, as a Z receiver, I think that concern is more if he's playing the X. But Brandon Ayuk's the X on this team. And Ricky Pearsall is going to be on tight splits near the line of scrimmage, and I think he's going to be doing a lot of over-the-middle stuff. And you're in an offense that's predicated on timing. And so some of the concerns that you can very easily and fairly glean from rookie minicamp in the small sample size of what we've seen, one, I think, have to be attributed to just really bad quarterback play. It was incredible that he got his hand on 2 of those 4 passes that you alluded to. I have them all stored up here in my head because I was very focused on what he was doing. It's incredible that he even got hands on him, especially that deep one, given the delivery of some of these passes. It was those guys aren't playing in the NFL. I don't know if they can play in the CFL. Maybe the fan-controlled football league comes back. I don't know. But like Mordecai and the other guy, like it ain't them. So will be interesting to see in training camp. But ultimately, this is a guy who is going to be he's going to be a big play maker, but it's not going to be on necessarily deep routes by design. And the other thing that you always have to remember is nobody schemes receivers open better than Kyle Shanahan. So if you did have concerns about his ability to get some separation off the line, his ability to get himself open, it would even be mitigated by that. The fact that he can do that, I think he is not just going to be in wide open spaces on the field. I think he's going to have acres to work, and I really like him as an open field player. Could all be wrong. We do have to see what happens when he actually gets into a real NFL offense with a real NFL quarterback and is going up against real NFL defenders. But I saw far more, and maybe this is confirmation bias on my end because I was very high on Pearsall. I was thrilled when the Niners took him at 31. I thought that was the right pick. Gave it an A+ grade. It was something that Hutch and I talked about on our show weeks in advance. Like we were all in on Slick Rick. So maybe it is confirmation bias on my end, but I saw no reason to discount anything when it comes to the best case scenario off of one rookie minicamp. I can change my tune very quickly come July when we see him against the NFL guys, but it's hard for me to believe that he's going to look like a scrub out there. And a lot of these issues, no player is perfect. A lot of these issues I think can be easily mitigated by scheme and talent around him. And even if they're not, I still think he's going to be a very valuable player for the 49ers, not just this year, but certainly in the future.
You have an article, last Niner question. I got two last ones and we'll bolt. We're an hour and 40 minutes in.
Where you're going.
You have an article out right now, and I'm looking at it right now. Dieter Kurtenbach, Brock Purdy is in line for a massive contract. The 49ers don't have to pay him.
No, they don't.
Well, what do you think? Goff got $50+ million. The way this is looking is Brock's going to get $55 million. There are people that feel like, you know what, the Niners won't be able to win with Brock Purdy making $55 million. I just think that, they've hit on day 3 of the draft and after the draft, and they've missed a lot at the top of the draft. And if they're going to maintain their status as a Super Bowl contender through the Purdy contract years, when he is making 50 times what he's making now or more, they're going to have to hit on day 1 and day 2. They're going to have to be that much better personnel wise. Their margin for error is not nearly as good. But for people who, first of all, tease the article and give people kind of a, your topic sentence and what your whole thought process is in this piece.
Well, it's pretty simple. Brock Purdy's played 28 games as the 49ers starting quarterback. Forgive me for thinking that maybe he should have 50 under his belt before the 49ers pay him $50 million a year and 20 to 25% of the salary cap money that they can use, which would probably be closer to 25 with a lot of the dead cap hits that are going to be coming up here. I think Brock Purdy is deserved coming off of last year. If last year is the only source information that you can use, give him the damn money. He's a better quarterback than Jared Goff.
The year before that, he didn't lose a game. He ran the table.
Like there is no question in my mind, Brock Purdy is an excellent quarterback. But there's been a lot of minds that have been changed about quarterbacks in this league in a very short period of time. So this presumption, which I think is absolutely fair right now, that Brock Purdy at the end of this season is going to get $55-60 million a year in a new contract once his current contract, which has 2 years remaining on it, kicks out, I think is fair and I think is accurate. I also think it could look pretty foolhardy for the San Francisco 49ers because you still have 2 more years of football that need to be played before Brock Purdy has to be paid. And by the way, he doesn't even need to be paid at that point. You can franchise tag him and he'll still be making oodles of money, but you are not committed to him long-term, $50 million, $80 million signing bonus, all this stuff. You're not all in on Brock Purdy yet. And I think if the 49ers were a bit more cynical about paying guys, and I think that they get very happy and self-congratulatory about, hey, this guy, we reset the market with this guy. Look at how much we love our players. That's great and all, and it's worked out for them damn near every time. Brock Purdy is a 6-foot-tall quarterback who makes a lot of plays by extending them with his feet. And I think he's exceptional. I think that in terms of his ability to see the field, deliver the ball, there's not a lot that guy cannot do. So we very well could be heading to a world where Brock Purdy continues to play at an MVP level year in and year out, in which case give the man his damn money. But I think that even one more season of what he did last year would probably be hasty in terms of committing the entire franchise to this quarterback, given the success the 49ers have had in getting solid production out of subpar quarterbacks. I think Nick Mullins, who had the second most passing yards in the history of the NFL through 16 games as a starting quarterback. And then Jimmy Garoppolo, they were able to go to a Super Bowl with him, go to an NFC Championship game a couple times with him. I mean, we all know the limitations of Jimmy. Now no one pretends that Jimmy was some great quarterback. We can all live in the reality that was very evident at the time that Jimmy was holding the team back more than helping them. But they were still able to win a lot of football games, paying him at the time the highest, biggest contract in NFL history. I just think that there's far more examples, much like with first round picks or number one overall quarterbacks even. There's far more examples of these kind of contracts absolutely ruining teams than there are of guys who have really played it out and earned every cent. Patrick Mahomes, I don't know why he signed that contract. He's going to make $45 million. I'm sure it'll be restructured a million times over, but he signed like a 10-year, $450 million deal. He'll be like the 8th highest paid quarterback in the league. You can't tell me that any of these guys, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, I don't care. You can't tell me that anyone is worth more than him. And if Brock Purdy...
Wait a second here. So now you're questioning Mahomes for taking the security.
No, I mean, fair play to him.
You're saying that it's smart for the Niners to play it out and not give Brock the security, or would it be smart for the Niners to sign Brock as fast as possible, like today, so that they pay him less because the price just keeps going up?
The price is
what's the best way to play your hand? I mean, do you really want to take your quarterback and play financial games with your quarterback and maybe kind of piss him off? I mean, what's the bigger risk, to not pay him or to pay him?
I think the bigger risk is to pay him than to not pay him, because Jared Goff just made $50-something million a year. I mean, we're through the looking glass now, Larry. There's no levels to this anymore. It's Jared Goff coming out now being the second highest paid quarterback in the NFL behind Joe Burrow tells me strictly, I mean, how much higher can it go? I mean, I don't think there will be a $70 million quarterback anytime soon, just because there's a certain limitation on how much cap you can spend. But if you wait 2 more years, okay, now maybe you're paying $5 million more a year than you were. But my God, we're dealing with 25% of your salary cap.
And what do you think the play is going to be from Parag? I mean, Kyle's got an agent. I think Kyle Strongton or something like that out of Nashville. Do you think Brock's going to play his hand like, hey, man, I want every possible dollar? Yeah. Or is he going to take a little bit of a discount to try to have a better team around him? How do you think the Niners opening salvo? They're notorious for lowballing and really being tough negotiators. How is this thing going to get done? When do you think it's going to get done?
Well, it should have. If this is the numbers we're dealing with, if we are now 100% in the $50 million range, we're past lowballing and being taken seriously. I mean, you cannot reasonably say that Brock Purdy is less valuable than Jared Goff. It's just a non-starter from Brock Purdy's camp. And maybe Brock is Tom Brady 2.0, and he's willing to take the hits to have a better team around him. Maybe, but the man's already taken some pretty significant hits. I mean, this guy has to do more commercials than even Larry Krueger.
He's got that John Deere money.
He's got that Alaska Airlines money.
John Deere. He's got that Toyota money.
Got that Toyota money. Like this guy's having to work a second job just to.
Well, he is. I mean, he's a very clean cut kid. I mean, he's going to be a very big. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying he's Arnold Palmer, but I mean, he might be the 2024 version of Arnold Palmer when it's all said and done. If this kid leads the 49ers to a 6th Lombardi and stars in that game, he is going to be right there with Peyton Manning, and because he's the cleanest. Corporations are going to sprint to him because you just know he is not going to be in the club. He's not going to be here. No. He's not going to be there. He's literally going to be, he's going to get on a tractor in Iowa and help some farmer. And I mean, the guy's too good to be true in a lot of ways.
And I agree. And ultimately, I do think the 49ers pay him a tremendous amount of money. And when that happens, I'm not going to say that he doesn't deserve it. What I'm saying is, Everyone will hope that he's Tom Brady. I get the sneaking suspicion that he's Kirk Cousins. And this has nothing to do with the level of play, though I think Kirk Cousins is dramatically underrated. I think Kirk Cousins is an all-time bag getter. And the way that he handled the situation in Washington was impressive, because then he got paid by Minnesota, guaranteed money. Then he got paid by Atlanta, guaranteed. Like, he's
made a lot of money.
And by the way, you want to talk about a clean cut, easy to sell guy? I mean, he's a cornball, but like Kirk Cousins, no one did think on Kirk Cousins, no, family man. So, and yet he's out here just robbing teams, just taking them left and right. Kirk Cousins is the player that Kyle Shanahan wanted. The reason that Kyle Shanahan will give Brock Purdy the big money is because he sees him as a Kirk Cousins, an offensive coordinator on the field, someone who he can have intellectual conversations with about the offense instead of having to pound home basic concepts. They can expand the offense. They can get into weird stuff. This guy's incredible. This guy's great. He's going to deserve every penny he gets. But if the 49ers are dead serious about building this team to win Super Bowls, the best thing they can do is be dicks about this and push this thing as far out as they possibly can until it's just simply undeniable. And if there is a cost to doing business that way, because eventually you're going to have to pay him $5, $6, $8 million more per year because you kept pushing it out and delaying and prove us right. So be it. That is worse. That is worth the cost, because you'll never have a doubt. But legitimately, the guy, as great as he was last year, as great as he was when he came in, it can't stay this good forever. And while I firmly believe that Brock Purdy is the kind of guy who will be able to bounce back if he has a downturn, you cannot do think about what happened. Where are the Giants? They decided, Daniel Jones had a great year. Let's go give him all the money in the world. How's that working out? I don't know what the hell the Browns were thinking, giving the nasty man all that money guaranteed, but how's that working out for him? You can't even say Russell Wilson's name in Denver anymore. I mean, you just go down the list of teams that have sold out to keep or get that big time quarterback, pay that guy top of the market, pay that guy the big money. And it is far more often not worked out than it has. So I'm much more willing for the 49ers to string this thing out as long as they can. And that means not extending them after next year, no matter what happens this year. And that means really pushing this thing and threatening to use the franchise tag and playing hardball, because if it goes, it can go instantaneously and irrevocably. And if it stays up, all you're doing is getting a better sample size that proves that this is the dude worthy of it. But he's worthy of it right now because the market dictates it. I still think he has more to prove when it comes to actually deserving it, because, again, we're not even to 30 NFL starts yet. You're going to pay a guy $50 million. I'd like to see 50 flipping starts out of him.
All right. Fair enough. It's a strong take. And then people should go online in the San Jose Mercury News and check it out. All right. 3 last ones. 1-word answer on this one. Tanner Mordecai. Yeah. Something or nothing?
Nothing.
He will not give Brandon Allen a run for his job.
Not a very high bar, but no.
Okay.
I'm pretty concerned about the backup quarterback position.
You're not a Dobbs man.
No, there's a reason that Dobbs was available when he was available. There's a reason that he got moved around twice. He's great. I mean, listen, Dobbs is a very sharp guy.
He looked good against Dallas. He looked good against the Niners at Levi's.
You toss him in there. You let his brain do the work. You give him the simple offense. He goes. And then the tape gets out on him, and you're like, oh, shit, it's Josh Dobbs. That ain't good.
He's super smart. He's super athletic.
That's awesome.
But he's not good.
He's not a good quarterback.
I think Mordecai might be something. We'll see.
Hey, you got Purdy right, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, well, and he didn't look great at the minicamp, but there was one Purdy-esque thing that he did, and that is he just looked bored. And when you look bored, that means you got it down.
Yeah.
And bored to me at minicamp is a good look for a quarterback, because the other guy looked like
he was stressing.
Yeah, I mean, he was patting those feet, and one of those throws to Pearsall, it might have hit the building. It was so high.
I think Mordecai will be a camp arm, and we'll have a much better idea then. But I mean, I watched a lot of Mordecai out of Wisconsin just because I spent a lot of time on late round picks, and I didn't see it.
Okay, fair enough. He doesn't have the touch of Purdy, but to me, he's something. He's something. And I think there's a chance
Wisconsin
he takes.
kind of sucked last year too. Like,
Yeah,
I really like quarterbacks that actually like. I'm not a big win-loss guy or anything like that, but like, I don't know, man. In the college level, like, kind of am into wins and losses.
Did you see the bowl game though against LSU? 378
Yes.
yards with a broken hand,
No, yeah,
3 touchdowns.
he's got guts. It's going to make him a tremendous Toronto Argonaut. You know.
I see backup. It's going to take quite a bit to unseat Brandon Allen, but I think the kid's got a shot.
Yeah.
All right. One on the Giants and one on the Warriors, and we'll jet. The Giants just got destroyed again by the Dodgers this week, and it's starting to be uncomfortable. To the point where, I can't give the Giants a pass. I mean, I know there's so many Giants fans who want to give the Giants a pass for so much. They love Farhan. They love Jung-Hoo. They love
met someone who loves Farhan.
They love. Yeah, I mean,
I only seem to find the
clearly
opposite.
does. Cambiar is constantly, yanking his chain and yucking it up. I mean, seriously. I mean, you would think this guy's won titles by the way he gets treated on the radio.
7 games once.
Yeah, I mean, but the Giants, and I tweeted this out. I said the Giants are too relatively rich to keep except losing, this and falling this far behind the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. I said tonight was a complete embarrassment. Mm-hmm. It has to stop. The Dodgers are rich, but so are the Giants.
That's right.
And this is the part that always gets lost in the translation. The Giants generate roughly $500 million annually in revenue. That's top 5 in the big leagues. That's That's more than most teams in all of baseball. It's behind the Dodgers, but to me, they're currently behind the Dodgers because Farhan is getting his butt destroyed by Andrew Friedman. Mm-hmm. The Dodgers GM is clearly better.
No question.
The Giants annually do not draft and develop players as well as the Dodgers do in the farm system.
It's egregious.
I'm not sure whose fault that is, but it is.
Well, it's the Bucks got to stop with the director of baseball operations there.
Right. The Dodgers spend more money on player payroll than the Giants do.
Giants have tried.
They produce a lot of revenue. The Giants produce a lot of revenue, but the Dodgers still, even though the Dodgers spend more on player payroll than the Giants, they also spend a higher percentage of their revenue. Mm-hmm. So the Dodgers have more revenue, but then they also spend like 55% of that revenue on player payroll. The Giants have less revenue, even though it's a ton, but they're spending close to 45% on player payroll. So they produce less revenue, and then they spend a lower percentage of that revenue, and they don't compete with the Padres and the Dodgers for the best players in the international market.
No.
And the general manager doesn't seem like he's doing anything. And to me, I just said, hey, man, it's time for the Giants ownership to get serious about contending. It's time to truly compete with the Dodgers and Padres for the best international players in the world. Mm-hmm. It's time to prioritize winning over making a tidy profit. And I just kind of finished it up by saying the Giants would rather win. The Dodgers are committed to winning.
Yeah. But have you seen, the difference in the real estate portfolios, Larry? The Giants are just lapping the Dodgers right now.
Giants have all that Mission Rock real estate. But the Giants ownership
difference in priority.
The Giants ownership group owns a huge swath of the eastern waterfront that is going to be developed in the remaining years of our lifetime. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see waterfront property all the way down to where Candlestick used to be. It's all going to get developed, and it's all going to be multi-million-dollar property. Mm-hmm. And Nibby and all their owners own a big chunk of that stuff, and they're going to make money hand over fist. The ballpark's paid off. Yep. The mortgage is paid off. Every penny that comes through there is pure profit. Mm-hmm. There's now gambling revenue. There's Mission Rock revenue. Yep. And I'm just sitting here, and I'm really tired of watching the Giants act like, hey, we're the A's. No, you're not the A's.
No.
Your general manager has an A's mindset, but you're not the A's.
Well,
and they need to start acting like the incredibly rich team that they are, and their fans have got to start holding them to a much, much higher standard. It's not just about spending money. They spend a bunch of money this offseason. It's about spending the money wisely. And they're not spending the money wisely, and they just got destroyed by LA. and it's a miracle they even won the one game.
It always comes back.
What's the solution here? Is it time to kick Farhan to the curb? Do you put it on him? Is it on? I mean, the largely left-leaning Bay Area would love to put it all on Charles Johnson and just say, "Oh, he's donating to
Marjorie, part of the problem. I mean, he's
Marjorie Taylor Greene, and he's the person, and he's terrible." Okay, that's fine, but he's not making trades. He's not trading. He's not trading for AJ Pollock. No. He's not losing out on all these free agents.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of wondering how much, and then people are like, well, you blamed Kapler last year, and this year you're giving Melvin a pass. I wanted Kapler and Farhan both gone, but I was more passionate about Kapler because Kapler is a true jackass.
Phony.
But Melvin, and a total fake and phony and a wannabe intellectual,
legitimately one of the more fascinating people.
He's a bad guy.
Dude. Yeah.
I mean, people are like, well, he must have done terrible things to you. It's like, no, I just witnessed him bullying other media people, and I just sat there and laughed. But it's like, dude, you bully people,
it's unbelievable.
As far as I'm concerned, you're dead to me. So I was so glad to see his ass get marched out of there. I wish they had gone double bubble and gotten rid of Farhan as well, but instead they decided to keep Farhan. I'm not sure why. And now Melvin's there, and I can't blame Melvin for this tire fire of Giants baseball, even though I don't think he's done this awesome job, but I can't blame him because their outfield sucks. And everybody they signed has played terrible.
That's right.
So weigh in on the Giants. I mean, do you have a Dieter solving the Giants riddle column coming out anytime soon?
I mean, the problem is that everything is the problem, and it all combines into this morass of ass that they got going on right now.
Is that like an ace? Is that sort of like Ace of Base?
Ace of Base. It's the morass of ass.
Yeah,
they do make a lot of money, and it incentivizes them to maintain a high baseline. And that high baseline in modern Major League Baseball, thanks to Rob Manfred, is just be a 500 team. You can make the playoffs. That's all you need to be these days. And there's about 9 teams in the National League that's all they're shooting for. Luckily, there are 3 teams that still actually want to try to win 100 games and be really, really good in the Phillies, the Braves, and the Dodgers. But everyone else is like, fuck it. We'll just play for 500. Hope we'll be in it in September. And so they play
like Arizona did a year ago and almost got it done.
It's legitimately better business, but it's not very rewarding. And that's Major League Baseball's fault. It's the Giants ownership's fault for wanting to play that game and not wanting to go fiscally toe to toe with the Dodgers, but instead maintain a solid profit margin, right? Somewhat break even, and just stay in the thick of it. And again, because Major League Baseball decided to dilute their product by expanding the playoffs so that they could get a little extra money from Turner in a one-time burst, they now have a situation where the San Francisco Giants, who are unquestionably an ass baseball team and no fun to watch, went into this morning a game and a half back after getting their ass kicked in and their teeth by the Dodgers in 2 or 3 games.
Wait, game and a half back, not of the Dodgers. They're game and a half back of the final wild card spot.
Which is all they've ever been shooting for.
They keep adding wild card spots.
It's all they've ever been shooting for. And Farhan Zaidi is the perfect general manager to get your team to 83 wins, which is all they're shooting for. Because Farhan Zaidi will try to make some big splashes. He'll be able to keep the PR halfway decent. He'll try to go get the big guy. Then they can say, well, they just don't like San Francisco. And you get assholes like me on the radio being like, yeah, San Francisco's great. These free agents don't know what the hell they're talking about. Even though all of them are like, I'm not going to go and hit at Oracle Park unless you're paying me 5x what anyone else would pay me. And so every year
that kills my next contract.
Exactly. If I ever get one.
So they're kind of limited to either guys at the end or that's really it. I mean,
they're 100% screwed because they're never going to pay the premium that it actually costs to get big time hitters to come to San Francisco, which is why you've seen this team sign distressed assets, Matt Chapman, Blake Snell, guys that they could get on these funky 1+1+1 year deals. It's why
everybody's got an out. Everybody's got an out to bail.
They got one guy who signed into 2028. It's Logan Webb. And then you also get a bunch of guys who grew up around here. So they know that the Bay Area is great and they want to play in the Bay Area. There's a lot of dudes with Bay Area ties that they signed. And so what you have is a team, and it comes back to this every single flipping time. It comes back to how you develop your own players. And the Giants have not developed, but maybe one everyday position player from their own farm system.
Did you hear Farhan today, by the way, with Tommy?
I didn't.
So Tolbert asked him the question that had to be asked, which credit to Tom, said, hey, you haven't developed any hitters. And then he's like, well,
Patrick
Tom's
Bailey.
like, well, besides obviously the catcher, Bailey's, who's a nice catcher and
fine,
decent hitter. But he's like, you haven't developed any hitters. Why is that? And Farhan does this soliloquy of, we're trying and this and that. And then he starts naming guys like, we're not just looking for hitters, in free agency and in the minors, we're looking for other teams' players that are not getting an opportunity. And he starts naming Yaz and
Wilmer Flores, probably.
I know he went Yaz and Tyro. And who was the other guy that he mentioned that he got from somebody who turned into something? But I mean,
Fordo?
It's like, come on. I mean, you're citing Yaz. I mean, he was a 28-year-old minor leaguer that you got 3 or 4 nice years out of. He's hitting 200. He's hitting under 200 maybe.
Yeah.
And you're citing him as an offensive piece that you unearthed. I mean, that's what I mean, the Padres are signing the top international player in the
no one is better
every year.
And they could trade like crazy because no one does it better than AJ Preller in San Diego.
Yeah, the guy coming up with creative trades. Where's Farhan's creative trades?
He has the arsenal and the wherewithal to say, okay, even if I trade away my entire farm system, I can rebuild it in 2 years in the draft and in the international system because I'm so much better than everybody else at this. He really is.
Is it him or I think it might be Logan White that's actually down there.
He was the long time
Dodger guy. Now he's with the Padres.
Logan White's very good, but Preller is renowned as the scouting guy. If you needed one scouting dude in baseball, you want AJ Preller. And so, and by the way, their system looks absolutely stacked. They got a lot of dudes that a lot of guys are really high on. And sometimes that shit doesn't work out, but it's kind of worked out plenty for them. And the Giants, they have not developed a hitter. I like a lot of their arms. I question if they have maybe Wisenhunt. I question if they have anybody with ace upside.
Yeah, he looks good. Wisenhunt looks good.
I think they've done a good job with arms. I really do. But it doesn't.
There's no bats.
It doesn't flip.
What are they going to do in July? What are they going to do in July? I mean, what should they do in July? They're waiting. They set this thing up for Cobb and Ray rejoin them in July, and they make this run to the playoffs.
Yeah.
But should they maybe pivot and turn this year from, hey, we can get the last wild card spot to we could trade? I mean, think about it. If they decided they wanted to go fire sale midseason, they do have now a lot of individual pieces that they could move. And maybe then just go young the rest of the way and see if you can eat they ate some of the money to make other moves. Maybe you eat some of the Chapman money, you start moving some of these veteran pieces that you have. I mean, they got a number of veteran pieces that may be attractive to other teams, including Cobb and Ray.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? Is July going to be Farhan selling and setting this thing up with prospects for 2025, or is it going to be Farhan buying, selling away these, going big after a Pete Alonso or something like that, and saying goodbye to Luciano and Matos and Ramos and Rainier Arias and anybody else in their farm system that is coveted by opposing teams. What's his July play?
I don't think that they're going to be very good for the next month and a half. And they've already been pretty crappy. So I think they will be in a much better position to sell. But I don't think Farhan Zaidi can do that for his own sake. Because if he sells, all he's doing is trying to restock the cupboard for somebody else.
I know, but isn't that the point? I mean, I think Giants fans have brought this up on social media a lot in the last 2 weeks, which is, should Farhan be given the opportunity
Too late.
Based on the way this is year 6, they've had one good year. It was clearly flukish. It was aided by all of Sabian's guys plus Gaussman. Should Farhan be given the opportunity to make that decision, or should they march his ass out of there before July and do the rebuild without him? Because you're right. He's probably not going to do the rebuild because he's smart enough to know that he'll be rebuilding for another executive.
Yeah.
I don't know that they can force him to do something like that.
Think about what he just did this offseason. I mean, he acted strictly in self-preservation. Gabe Kapler, the man he handpicked and took the PR bullet for, and backed again and again and again when it was clear that someone was going to have to go at the end of last season. And that was pretty clear sometime, August? He started throwing him under the bus. And there was these just little hints and tricklings. Anytime he'd go on KMBR, anytime he talked to the media, he would just start throwing Gabe under the bus, saying, actually, it's all Gabe's fault. Don't look at me. It's Gabe's fault. And he got Bob in there because Bob didn't do a very good job in San Diego. Better than Jace Tingler, which wasn't a very high bar.
Bob was one of the most underachieving. The Padres under Bob were the most underachieving team in baseball last year.
And what has he produced here? Another underachieving team. I mean, if we want to say, I will say this for people who want to get in, we can go in on Farhan on a macro level, but you can't like what Farhan did this past offseason and then blame him for the team sucking. You can't have it both ways. You either were wrong then or you're right now. Like, I
mean, I wanted them to go get Jorge Soler for sure, and they did. And I still believe that Soler is a warm weather guy. That when the weather warms up, he's going to have a big.
He's going to have Francisco though, Larry. I don't know.
Have a Kyle Schwarber kind of a month. He's going to rip a bunch of jacks. But I mean, 19 million for Jung-Hoo Lee. I mean, I like Jung-Hoo Lee, but he ain't worth 19 million. He should have been more like a 3-year, $40 million deal. Maybe something like that.
But that's
13 million a year for pay. But they paid him, way overpaid him.
Yep.
Snell was a huge risk. I was rooting hard for them not to sign Chapman because in my mind they have Chapman. His name's Casey Schmidt. They can find a guy who can play the hell out of third base and hit 228. His name's Casey Schmidt, and you save $60 million.
To be fair, Matt Chapman, it's
a better defensive player.
I don't want to be analytics here, but Matt Chapman has had MVP caliber seasons at the plate, and when he's hot, which he has been for month and a half long stretches, pretty much his entire career, some of them expanding out even further than that, he has stretches where he's the best hitter in baseball, and Casey Schmidt is always a 200 hitter. So, listen, I'm not saying that Matt Chapman's playing well. I'm just saying there's a lot of underlying numbers that give me the indication that if it clicks for Matt Chapman, it clicks in a big way. That still has to happen. No guarantee it will happen. But Matt Chapman's got the track record. And ultimately, we got to be real. I mean, Matt Chapman was signed to a bargain basement deal. You have to overpay to get a guy to stick around. And then the only other, it's again, distressed assets. Matt Chapman, Blake Snell, guys they signed in March of this year. These are the only guys that they can sign in free agency when it comes to bats. And that's not Farhan's fault. That's been a problem long standing. But this team hasn't created its own stars. It hasn't. And it pushes out Logan Webb like he's the star of all stars. Logan Webb is a fine pitcher. And he had a good game yesterday where he gutted out a win for the Giants when he did not have his good stuff. And the Dodgers were sitting his change up and he mixed up his pitch mix and all that stuff. And they had 5 guys who weren't on the team on May 1st playing, around him. And it was a hot mess of a situation. He got it out a win. Good. I mean, he's a hell of a pitcher. He can't be your best player. If he's your best player, you're not a very good team. And he's your best player. So I would get rid of Farhan at this point. I'm done defending him. But you're going to see in the next month or so, if there's any chance that they have a guy, just one, who could be a solid everyday player for them for the next 6 years, we're going to find out in the next month or so because they got to play Ramos. They got to play Matos. I guess they have to play Schmidt. I don't know. Throw Luciano out there. I know he sucks at playing shortstop, but I'd like to see the kid hit. Like
he's up now.
I know, but like they didn't play him yesterday. And
they just got Kurt Casale, by the way, after.
Well, I mean, and so all of our problems are over, Larry. But,
yeah, they got Casale, which is nice.
We're gonna find out if okay, These were of the options of guys who could turn into somebody that you could count on to produce an all-star from your own damn system. Those are your three best options as hitters. They're all up on the team right now. They're all, or they should all, be used in a serious capacity for the next month or so. In Matos' case, it might be for the rest of the year with the way Jung-Hoo Lee ran into that wall.
Yeah, what is the word on that? He's done for the year, right? He dislocated the shoulder.
It's structural damage.
You're talking about, I mean, he's got to have surgery on that thing.
It's hard to imagine he's playing anytime soon. I mean, if he's back,
and he's nice, he's nice, but he's not worth $19 million. I mean, he's a two. I asked Marty in spring training. I said, Marty, what's he going to hit? What's he going to hit? Marty's like 255. I said, 255? You got to be kidding me. If he's hitting 255, it's a fucking major failure.
Yeah.
And to me, when you pay a guy $19 million who's not going to steal 15 bases, not going to hit 15 home runs.
Yeah.
The guy's got to be a great defensive center fielder.
He is.
And he's got to hit you a solid minimum 285, 290.
Agreed. And
he looked like a guy who was capable of that. I like watching him. He plays center field like a pro. I mean, this guy, he's a really great center fielder.
Yeah.
And he's a really good bat speed and really good contact hitter. And he's only 25.
Yeah.
But $19 million player, he's not worth $19 million. And once again, Farhan got ripped off. I mean, show me the team that was going to offer this kid 17.
And I mean, that's fair.
I mean, who were you competing against?
They were, to my knowledge, bidding against themselves. There were a lot of teams that were interested, but they decided they decided they were just going to come in and make their best offer first. And it's like, dude, no one else was putting in bids yet. Like,
I like
into a war a little bit.
I like him, but he ain't worth that. He ain't worth that.
But, again, like, what the hell do we care? If he's a solid player on this team, that's one less spot you had to worry about.
Yeah.
So,
but if the Giants had
19 or 30 or 5.
Yeah, no, I hear you. But if the Giants had an endless pocketbook, it'd be one thing. But since we know they're very finite in what they're going to spend, $19 million on a guy who doesn't steal. If he stole 15 bags, if he hit 15 home runs,
the fact that he's supposed to be the grandson of the wind and he never runs. Like, that's pretty stupid.
So, there's, I don't know.
I wanted to give the guy the benefit of the doubt because, he's coming from Korea. That's a big league adjustment. It's a big cultural adjustment. You want to say, okay, this is about as bad as it's going to be. And it was still pretty good. But this is what happens too when you don't bring up anybody through your own system to play the field. Now you're paying everybody $8 million. You're paying them all these middle-class baseball salaries, or in the case of Lee, like an upper or lower upper-class baseball salary. And that shit adds up.
Yeah.
It adds up. So somehow this team that's old and uninteresting and unexciting has a luxury tax payroll. And you're like, how is that possible? And it's because you don't have any good young fucking players.
Yeah.
And you didn't develop any. And by the way, in 6 years, you should have one. And I guess fortune has smiled upon us with all these injuries because we're going to find out if they have even one of them in the next month. And if they do have one of them, it is such a low bar, but now maybe we can work with something. Now maybe we can, there's no foundational pieces. There's one play. Jung-Hoo Lee could be considered a foundational piece because he's signed through 2027. Logan Webb is a pitcher. His arm could explode at any second because he's a pitcher. I know he doesn't have a 100-mile-per-hour heater.
Solid, but nothing more than solid.
He should be the second or third best pitcher on a really good team. Everyone would like to have him. If that's your ace, your horse, sorry, dude, they're gonna play the Pirates next week, and they're gonna get to see Jones and Skeens. That's what an ace looks like in 2024. Pick either of them. That's the fucking Pirates.
Yeah,
I
like some of the Giants pitchers, but I mean, and it's just too bad. They needed a couple more hitters. They lose Jung.
Yeah.
Now this looks like a total rebuilding year. Now it's like they're gonna have to tear it down. All right, last topic, and then we'll jet, and that's the Warriors.
Yeah,
I've been watching.
Talk about rebuild.
Yeah, I've been watching the Chicago Combine.
Yeah,
I really do love this kid Baylor Shireman from Creighton, and he can flat out shoot it. He's a 6'7" shooter. And people were saying, hey, Baylor Shireman, yet he's listed at like 57th on NBADraft.net's mock draft. He's not going 57th. He's probably going to go in the late first round.
Yeah.
But I love Shireman as a player, kind of like Filipowski, the kid from Duke, kind of like McCain, the guard from Duke. but he had 25-inch vertical or something like that. He didn't have much of a vertical, so he's kind of a ground-bound guy. I'll tell you the guy that I really kind of like is Tyvon Grant Foster from Grand Canyon, who just went off in the tournament. He's 6'7", willowy guy who looks like Wiggins. He can get to the hole, and he looks special, but Wiggins with a little fire. What are they going to do? I mean, Steph's going to be still in his prime for another year or two.
Yeah.
They're trying desperately to run it back.
Yeah.
I don't want to see Klay Thompson back here miserable that he got screwed. I'd rather him move on. Because they offered him $50 million. He turned it down. He's not worth $50 million. So it's like you offered him a ridiculous overpay, and he is such an ego at this point that he's convinced that you're screwing him at $50 million.
Yeah.
In reality, he's probably not worth $25 million.
Agreed.
And some people say, well, look what Drew Holiday got. Okay, but I mean,
Drew Holiday is the premier perimeter defender in the NBA at his position, and Klay Thompson has no role on defense in the modern NBA. But yeah, sure, let's look at what Drew Holiday did.
Right. A lot of people are saying, well, he's going to get a Drew Holiday deal. I just think it's so much
good luck
easier.
To whoever gives that to him. Good luck.
I think it's so much easier to accept a lesser role in a new place than it is to accept a lesser role in the same room where you lose a little face. And obviously Klay, who was just such a great teammate on the way up, now I think the heaviness of his battle with himself is just becomes this kind of theme around the team that's such a downer. And I think I know he's Mr. Bay Area, and he's one of my favorite athletes of all time.
He's incredible.
He's an incredible guy.
We'll always have the memories, Larry.
It's time to move on from him. And and then I'm looking at their team, and I'm like, well, how are they going to get better? I mean, they don't have a first-round pick, so the draft's really not available to them. They have a second-round pick, but it's late. They might be able to get a guy like Shireman late, but he's not a difference maker as far as them in the playoffs.
No one you're getting at 52 is going to change the game for you.
Oh, you did get whatchamacallit last year, 57.
You got Trace Jackson Davis,
and that was an amazing thing. But
good luck with that again.
What are they going to do? I mean, are they just going to wither and stink? Is there any move or series of moves that they could make? There's a segment that I would like to throw out called Krug's Crazy Trades. And I've got a couple for you. And this is one of them. What do you think of this move? Okay. I don't know that you can get this from Memphis, but this works on the trade machine. Okay. What do you think of Wiggins and a 1 or Wiggins and multiple 1s to Memphis for Marcus Smart, Zaire Williams, and Santi Aldama? Santi Aldama is a perimeter shooting big.
I know Santi. I know those guys.
Jair played at Stanford and he's kind of swingman who's talented, but he's kind of floated around. He hasn't really found a home.
He's
Smart, makes a lot of money. He's a defender. He's a great defender.
I don't know what Marcus Smart does for this team.
He's kind of like a Gary Payton part 2. He's kind of like another Gary Payton. He would, between Payton and Draymond and Marcus Smart, you would have some really good on-ball defenders
that would be easily mitigated by a single wing.
What do you think of that trade? Would that trade intrigue you if you could get it done for Wiggins and a number 1 or 2 number 1s?
I mean, I think Memphis would sprint to get that deal into the league office, which kind of tells me that it's not a good deal.
You like it from their perspective.
Yeah, because you're getting rid of Smart, who they signed to that deal because they had the extra cash, because they needed an adult in the room with Ja Morant's bullshit. But he didn't really provide much for them, at least in my estimation, last year. He was injured for a lot of it. It's something that he dealt with all the time in Boston. Boston, as much as everyone loved Marcus Smart on that team, they had no problem moving on from him. And, Aldama's a nice player. I'm not going to go out and say that you can just get an Aldama anywhere, but he's the best player of those 3. And you're throwing in a first-round pick and giving up a player who no one's arguing that Andrew Wiggins has fallen off dramatically, but he was at a point to have fallen off from where he was the second best player on a championship team, 2 years ago. So I'm not saying he's ever going to get back to that. I'm not saying he ain't frustrating as hell to watch, but he's a wing in a league where wings are gold. And I don't know what's going on with him. And I don't know why it has all fallen apart the way that it has. But at a certain point, you just got to hope it comes back, because if you get rid of him and take sort of the one in the hand instead of the two in the bush that is Andrew Wiggins, I don't even think you're getting one there. I just, what the Warriors' issue is that, okay, they need to get under the luxury tax line 2 out of the next 4 years, because the new CBA might as well have been built to break up the Warriors. Right. I mean, it's so
like you can't even parlay contracts together.
No, it's egregious.
There's no mid-level free agent. I mean, it's so punitive to people that are over the cap and over that second apron.
Yeah.
That it has to lead the charge.
People go, oh, okay, well then get rid of Klay Thompson. Okay, well that's fine, but you have no practical way to replace what Klay Thompson makes. You can't upgrade, right? If every spot is a block of salary, you can't do anything. If Klay Thompson leaves in free agency, that block of salary comes off the books.
They should have traded him at the deadline and save that salary spot. But it sounds like getting rid of him is probably their way to get under the cap, right?
And now you can say, well, actually, the easiest way for them to do it is to just waive Chris Paul. So now actually you wouldn't have to waive Chris Paul, but you really can't keep him. So then you're trading Chris Paul and hoping to bring something of value back, but that's not really going to happen. And the other thing you have to keep in mind here is that Jonathan Kuminga is extension eligible at the beginning of next season. And that's when you sign your rookie extension, before that season that's upcoming for Jonathan Kuminga.
I'm not moving him, by the way. I know I heard people say, hey, the only way they can become a contender is if they move Kuminga. I don't want to move Kuminga.
That's an exact headline from a column I wrote, because here's the deal. You're going to have to pay Jonathan Kuminga $30 million to stay around. Jonathan Kuminga is about to become a $30 million player in the NBA.
He's 21.
That's what the market is. Jaden McDaniels, who is a hell of a perimeter defender, but gives you almost no offense for the Minnesota Timberwolves, is a $30 million player. Jonathan Kuminga is a 21-year-old who averaged 18 points in the NBA. He's a $30 million player. Now, would I give it to him? No. Do the Warriors have any choice if they keep him around? No. So immediately that block of salary just gets replaced.
But isn't he Joe's favorite?
Yeah. Well, it's
isn't that part of it?
Yeah, no, it's Joe was very adamant about drafting him. It was a good draft pick at the time.
I think it's worked out pretty good. I mean, if you really think about it, he's only 21. I mean, look at the improvement from 19 to 21. If he improves
and keep doing
in the next 2 years to that level at 23, they're going to have something.
No question. But I'm of the thought that Jonathan Kuminga is already done his big leap. That this past year was his big leap, and that he can be a number 3 player on a very good team. But if he's a number 2 player, you're probably kind of shitty. And if he's your number 1 player, which is effectively what he will become, if you give him this rookie extension, which the market dictates you need to, he will become your number 1 player when Steph and Draymond and maybe Klay retire. And that's not too far away. And now Jonathan Kuminga is the only thing holding up the fort. And congratulations, you played yourself and you suck. You suck if Jonathan Kuminga is your best player. Jonathan Kuminga has a lot of John Collins in him, where for years the Atlanta Hawks are like, John Collins is a good player. Why doesn't anyone want to trade for him? Why don't they want to give up first-round picks? Or why don't they want to give us a really good player for John Collins? And it's like, because John Collins has already shown you all he can be. And now John Collins is just withering away in Utah, never took that second or third step. He had one big jump from mediocre player to, hey, young player with promise, and it never got to the next level because he doesn't have the perimeter shot. He can attack the rim, but his athleticism is going to continue to decrease and decrease and decrease because the entire game is predicated around attacking the rim, and he doesn't have the wherewithal mentally on defense, which is something you really show early. You either have it or you don't, and you can augment and refine, but you kind of know immediately if a guy can or cannot play defense. He has all the physical ability to play it. He just doesn't have the basketball awareness to be an elite defensive player. And, surely Steve Kerr has a lower of opinion of him than I do, given how he treated him all year. But they are headed straight down the barrel. This is a team, Joe Lacob will never rebuild. They're heading straight down the barrel at a forced rebuild in that they suck so hard that they just get an early draft pick and congratulations, you're rebuilding.
Wow. I mean, this year's draft is not one that you want to. It's a terrible draft.
I kind of like the late guys. Like of all the, if you were going to draft anywhere in this draft, it's like shit. I'll take a couple flyers on late guys. I don't want that one pick.
Zach Edey in the round 2 or something like that. I mean,
I like that.
Tyvon Grant Foster
out of a
second-round pick.
You know what? Here's the only reasonable move for the Warriors in the draft that can make them better. You draft Bronny James. And you hope LeBron holds his word and signs with you for the minimum. That's the only thing. That's the only you draft Bronny and you say to yourself, well, let's fucking find out. Hey, LeBron, you've always had admiration. Clutch turned down that trade midseason. Get LeBron James. Now we got something here.
For the minimum. Yeah.
For the minimum. Because it's the only way he can come. Because it's the only way you can fit him in, which he won't do.
Yeah.
But worst case scenario, I think Bronny could be fine. What's the worst that happened?
How big we
wasted pick 52?
Bronny's what, 6'4"?
Yeah, but he was shooting the lights out in Chicago. I think he could be a nice perimeter defender.
I'll say I thought the pickings were slim in Chicago. Okay, 2 last trades. Would you make this trade? You said Kuminga.
Yeah.
This works on the trade machine. Kevon Looney, Kuminga, and Guy Santos to Utah for Lauri Markkanen. Would you make that trade? Would Utah make that trade?
I don't think Utah would, but I think I would.
You would.
I think Utah feels like they are on the precipice. And I think Oklahoma City's success in this postseason should give them a lot of confidence that they are but a year or 2 away. And I think they'd be foolish to move off of Markkanen for anything less than an exceptional haul. The other issue that the Warriors have is that they hold Kuminga in so much higher esteem than any other team in the league, which is wild considering how they use him. But the folks I talk to around the league, they're like, Kuminga's fine. He's really interesting. He could end up being something, but the probabilities of him being a star, an all-star, are low. And the Warriors
people would love to steal him from the Warriors and give him pennies on the dollar. Some of the trades I've seen involving him are just horrible. And the last one would be Chris Paul, who they can re-up
and waive him too.
And then, they could re-up, they could exercise the thing and trade him, and then he's an expiring $30 million. They could do that.
That's right.
That would make their apron issue still a problem. But Chris Paul,
if Clay leaves, then it's not that big an issue.
Okay, so what do you think of this one though? Chris Paul and Moody and a number 1 or multiple number 1s to New Orleans for Brandon Ingram, who seems to be on the outs there. What do you think of trying to bring Ingram in? A lot, Marcus Thompson wrote a pretty lengthy piece in The Athletic, and he went through like 10 or 12 different options for the Warriors. The only one that seemed even remarkably possible or interesting was Brandon Ingram, who's a big time scorer who can play either forward spot. He would be a really nice Robin to Steph's Batman.
Yeah.
He's ready to roll right now. I think he's, I think he could potentially be really good with the Warriors.
Oh yeah, he's a 30-point per game player.
What do you think of trying to make that? I mean, you'd have to throw in multiple ones because you're giving Paul and Moody. That's not fair compensation for Ingram. But what do you think?
I think I would do it, but I do think that we have to recognize, okay, so Brandon Ingram's on the outs in New Orleans. Well, why is that? And what's the first call that Steve Kerr or Mike Dunleavy is going to make? They're going to call up their old friend Willie Green, the head coach of the Pelicans, and say, what the fuck's the matter with this guy? Because if Willie doesn't
what is
like
the matter with him?
He gets injured a bunch.
Yeah, he's thin. He's super thin.
There's some questions about.
He just gets lost in that team because as they've evolved, now they've got Trey Murphy. Trey Murphy shoots the 3 ball. Now they've got a healthy Zion. Zion's a dominant player on that team. But I'm saying that, what I'm saying? It's like he kind of fit better on this team before this team got better.
Agree. And I have a hard time because he's such an isolation player, kind of late in the shot clock desperation, set player. I have a hard time seeing him fit in a Warriors offense, which, New Orleans just runs high pick and roll. That's all they do. Whether it's the Travis Kelce lookalikes or JV or it's Zion running point. I mean, they just run high pick and roll like every other flipping team. The Warriors obviously are all split action and Iverson cuts and all this, actual motion offense. And while Ingram could be totally unlocked, get to another level with that, he does seem somewhat antithetical, somewhat more like a DeMar DeRozan or even a Zach LaVine, where they're sort of post offensive players, not in the post, like post the concept of offense. And there's a reason the Warriors, a lot of people on the outside have consistently been like, oh, go get those guys. Those guys are awesome. And they are awesome. But would they be awesome for the Warriors? No. And are the Warriors willing to sacrifice their values? No. They're probably wrong about that, but no. And so giving up the first round picks, I mean, this is where the Warriors really find themselves in trouble, which is they can't put all those first round picks together and get the kind of player that would render those first round picks irrelevant. So they have to hold on to the first round picks because they have to hedge for when this thing all falls apart, which, they just paid more money to a team than anybody else in the history of the NBA, and they finished as the 10 seed. So, I mean, if they're not being realistic about their ceiling here and the possible floor, then, that's malpractice. And I think Mike Dunleavy, congrats to my man Bob Myers for getting out when he did. He left Mike Dunleavy like 7 bombs and didn't give him any directions on how to defuse it. And, going back to the Clay thing real fast, like, I do think that the market for Clay will be stronger outside than it will certainly be inside. I don't expect the Warriors to up their offer all that much. I expect Clay to really, really explore the room with free agency.
He's going to Orlando. He looks at himself as the final piece in Orlando, I think.
Yeah. It's a very real thing, and I think it probably could be the best thing for him, given that he has to continuously fight against the old Klay Thompson here, and everybody who watched him play for 13 years here understands what that is. And it's very frustrating for us. It's very frustrating for him to have to constantly have that shadow around him. And maybe a fresh start is best for him, where they don't know that this guy was once super awesome and not totally washed. But
it's closer to the Bahamas, maybe.
Yeah, but it's still Orlando, Florida. I mean, he's going to talk to Philadelphia. He's going to talk to San Antonio. Yeah. Like, he's going to talk to all these teams. And my guess right now, because Clay's inscrutable, my guess right now is that he is doing what Draymond Green did when he would constantly flirt with Detroit when he was free agents. And he's just trying to get a little bit more from the Warriors so that they come and meet him in the middle, and then they can all, just age out together.
Oh, God,
and
I really don't want to see
we're going to enter, if you love the Forever Giants era, just wait for the Forever Warriors era, because for $18 beers and $200 seats, you can watch a bunch of old timers chuck up threes and play terrible defense.
This live stream should illustrate why we talk Niners most of the time, because when it gets time to talk about the Giants and the Warriors, it's
depressing.
It's like literally talking about, what time do you think the tsunami is going to hit the shore? You know what I mean? It's like, it's that kind of a conversation. It's really bad. And there's no easy answers for the Warriors.
I wish I could sell hope on any of this. It's much better for business, but I gotta be.
The Niners are like the greatest hope of all time compared to those two teams.
Well, it kills me too, because any pessimism you give about the Niners then comes across as like really negative, because there's no other. I mean, we could talk Macklin Celebrini. That's about the only other positive thing going. I mean, the Valkyries are here. Like, I mean, it's
people going,
dire.
Who the freak is Macklin Celebrini?
You're about to find out, folks. 42 days till the NHL draft.
He's the Sharks' #1 draft choice,
awesome.
and he's related to Rick Celebrini, who's the Warriors, one of the Warriors. He's his son, and Rick is what, the Warriors trainer or doctor.
He's de facto head coach, but yes,
good stuff, man. Man, that was quite the stream. You got anything that you want to promote? Tell people where they can find your channel. I mean, oh, by the way, I need you to read this for me before we jet, because I'm blind as a bat right now.
Let's see if my eyes are working.
Here we go. We'll read these 4. We got this one.
Here we go. Dieter's got lots of good takes. James Foster. I mean, that's a terrible take, but I appreciate the optimism.
Look at that. James Foster. You got
Dieter
lots
and
of
Hutchinson
takes.
Nailed the draft. Dumpster Fire Dan, you ain't kidding, buddy. Come on over. We welcome all sickos. And as Dumpster Fire Dan, I got a feeling that you got a sicko bone or two in you. You're
we
lazy,
go.
Larry. You're lazy. That's from Mongreen Eggcorn, which is a hell of a handle.
That's a great name, Mongreen Eggcorn.
I think the Warriors should take him 52nd in the draft. Take Mongreen Eggcorn.
And I don't know if you know the inside joke, but Bill Urbanek, who I used to work with in the Canadian Football League, used to say, "Boy, I love you. You're the best scout I've ever met, and you're fucking lazy." and that's what he. And it's funny because I've sometimes I'll run into some ex players from that CFL team, and they'll be like, "Hey, fucking Larry." That literally was my name that year, fucking Larry.
D-line worse or better than last year? That's from Dumpster Fire Dan again.
I say better. But
wow.
just simply because you got to factor in that the edge rusher of Leonard Floyd is better than the edge rusher of Randy Gregory or of Chase Young. Floyd plays hard all the time. He bends the edge. There's a speed element that they haven't had since D Ford that this guy does provide. His motor runs hot. At this point, he's a really good speed rusher. So I think him alone would make it better. But then you take out chronic, knee and plantar fasciitis Armstead, who you're going to have to pay a lot of money anyway. And he may also have felt disrespected for the money you were paying him, which is the same Warrior thing with Clay. And you got Jordan Elliott, who was 6th in the NFL among defensive tackles last year against the run, according to Pro Football Focus. And I kind of like Malik Collins. He's strong. He's got some quickness. I think both those guys are very underrated players, and I'll take those two for Armstead and the trade-off of Gregory and Chase Young for Floyd, and consider myself better for it.
I am very down on Floyd. I'm very down on Elliott. I can tell you that
he went to Missouri.
So it hurts me to say it. So usually I have those tiger stripe glasses on, but I can't do it. I mean, Cleveland had a bunch of defensive tackles. They gave him rep after rep. This is a guy who restructured his rookie contract because he was so afraid that the Browns were going to cut him and he wasn't going to get another job in the NFL at the minimum. So he restructured his rookie contract. And I mean, I think they had a parade in Cleveland when he left. Anyone who covered that team, anyone who followed that team, and for some reason, even though they hated me there, legitimately, like there was a bounty on my head in Cleveland for many years during the Warriors, Cavaliers back and forth. I mean, I was public enemy number one for multiple days. It was not great. You can look it up online. But I still have a lot of people I talk to in Cleveland. And I mean, the text that I got with the glee, like your problem now guy, like they just really did not like Jordan Elliott. Now they're also idiots. So maybe it does work out for the 49ers, but like it was pretty jarring. And the Leonard Floyd one, I got a lot of Buffalo Bills fans that I'm friends with. Again, don't ask. I live a very weird life. But I watched damn near every Bills game last year because they wanted to talk Bills, and what the hell else am I doing but watching football anyway? So I might as well flip these Bills games on NFL Plus. And I had this opinion before they signed him. It's all gone. I understand what you're doing, but like he doesn't set an edge. He doesn't set an edge anymore. And yes, he's a speed rusher, but he's very easily knocked off his lines. That's my opinion of it. Maybe a little bit of health in the offseason. He can come back and be something. If I had to bet positively, I mean, I like Collins. Yetur Gross-Matos might be the most interesting guy they signed for the defensive line. Inside, outside option, crazy athleticism. I think Yetur Gross-Matos could be somebody who actually makes a pretty big impact on this line. That's pretty much the only thing I liked out of the 49ers in free agency on the defensive line. I think they're going to be worse.
All right. Hey, no offense. I mean, I personally, Yetur Gross-Matos is probably going to have to play defensive end on first and second down.
Yeah.
To me, the Floyd thing is all simply about can you corner him into just playing pass rushing downs and third downs and really treat him more like a situational rusher as opposed to an every down defensive end. If you're saying every down defensive end, I think he's going to wear down. He'll be ineffective. I agree. He's not a great edge setter, but when you're comparing him to Randy Gregory and Chase Young,
can't divide by zero.
I think he's better than them. I think he's an upgrade from them.
It's so interesting when I talk to people, and sorry to keep this thing going, but like when I talk to people after they signed Floyd, I hit up kind of the main people that I trust for really good information. I don't know what this was. And so it was really interesting. And then, talking to Niners people, I'm like, so is he a first and second down guy where you're just going for the motor and he's going to be competent and, you're just looking for a pro to just hold the edge, be fine, but you're not looking to do anything flashy? Or is he your third down guy? And I got like 4 one way and 5 the other. That's not very encouraging because no one thought that he was an every down player. So it's like, it should be pretty obvious if he's a pass rusher, as you alluded to, or if he's a first, second down competent player. And again, I couldn't get a consensus from anybody. And these are people who do this stuff professionally and are really tuned into these sort of things. A lot of these, guys are making these decisions for teams. The fact of the matter is when I can't get a consensus on what he's supposed to be, but the one consensus is, well, he's not a 3-down player. That's really concerning to me. And, I'm a little bit concerned, especially too with you don't have Dre Greenlaw behind him, and you're going to be probably rocking 2 rookie safeties if Malik Mustafa is everything the Niners think that he is right now. Like,
my big concern for the Niners is run D. I mean, you did lose Armstead, and you don't have Greenlaw, and you may not have a Fonga in September. Yeah. And those are 3 of your better run defenders, and you're going to have to, figure out a way to stop the run without 3 of your better run defenders.
Yeah,
that could be a huge challenge. All right, Dieter, good stuff, man. When are you going to appear next on the radio? If people want to check you out, where can they find you the rest of the week?
At Dieter on Twitter, Dieter. That's where I post stuff. So you can
Mercury News, anything? Are you working on any article for the Merc that we should be looking for?
Tomorrow, I mean, we kind of just did it all. So if you've watched this far,
you don't need to read it.
You don't need to read what happened tomorrow, which I wrote this afternoon.
You all need to read it.
No, I mean, I'm heading out of town. We're trying to get away a little bit. I got jury duty next week, so I can't. We're in a weird position. OTAs can't come soon enough because otherwise I gotta go watch the fucking Giants. We're in a very strange space in Bay Area sports, but I'm trying to explore the space, have a little fun with it. And at Dieter is where you're going to find all my stuff, because I couldn't tell you when the hell next I'm going to be on the radio, but at Dieter, and my YouTube page, Daily Dieter Podcast, which has hardly been daily, and then Dieter and Hutch, which is actually far more frequent. And
look at you, man. And you got the newborn baby, right? Or not newborn. How old?
Yeah, she's 1.5 years old now. So basically, I got 2 bosses. I got my wife and I got her, and me and the dog just eating shit all day, every day.
Well, I don't know what your studio's like, but we haven't heard her.
Luckily she's been out since 7:30. So
don't
worry, she'll find me at about 5:36. It's going to be a blast.
There you go.
We're on a 3-hour plane ride tomorrow, Larry. Pray for me.
Where?
We're going to Kansas City.
Oh, nice.
We just had to make a trip.
Get some barbecue. Yeah,
we're going to get some good barbecue, and why else would you go but to watch the Royals play the A's on a Sunday at Kauffman Stadium in 90-degree heat, which we're going to do. Because
is it going to be 90 out there?
It's going to be like 85, 90. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I got some good seats under the shade. Don't come looking for me.
Don't jump into the waterfall.
We're going to teach you how to swim in those fountains.
All right. Good stuff. Thanks to Dieter. Thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. Thanks to everybody. Check me out tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday. So tomorrow at 8:45, Damon stops by for a little Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger wake up. And then Chase Sr. will be in the house tomorrow at 10:45. Saturday morning, the coach will be in the house talking Niners. So it should be good stuff. For Dieter, I'm Larry. Have a great night, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared.